And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bashing us, yeah.
Attention, roll call.
That's right. Good morning, everybody. 8:05 live Eastern time. Of course, it's Friday. It's the roundtable time. I think this is going to be a great episode. As always, we always hope to put on a good show and discuss facts over politics. I think this one is going to piss a lot of people off, or a lot of people are actually going to say, you know what, these guys are right. But what I find time and time again is anytime that we're actually critical of the upper echelon or promotions, or we attack someone's leadership, even the same people that have regurgitated what we're saying in the locker room come to their defense because everyone's a nice guy. So look, can we see beyond people being a nice guy and actually talk about leadership? How does it affect rank and file? Now we're talking about the promotion of Terrell Anderson. Terrell Anderson, who is part of a very controversial lawsuit where unqualified or disqualified candidates became recruits and entered the police academy and actually became cops in New York City in the NYPD. And Terrell Anderson was at the leadership, the commanding officer of the Candidate Assessment Division. And with that oversight, shortly thereafter, he now gets promoted. So you have to ask yourself, is this a cover-up? Is this a deserved promotion? What are your thoughts on that? So we're going to jump into this conversation. I think it's a great conversation. Let's be honest about it. And if you're a friend of Terrell Anderson or you think he's a nice guy, let's be honest. How does this affect rank and file? Let's have an adult conversation about that. So just a moment before we jump into this conversation, I just want to thank the Gunfighters Club again for doing another cancer donation. And really, those guys in Long Island, most of them are cops. I want to thank them, really putting their efforts to it. As you know, when I lost my son to cancer, and they're doing a bikini motorcycle wash. So some fine ladies are taking their time out for free, and they're going to be washing bikes for the Chad Tuff Foundation, which is a cancer foundation for DIPG, which I lost Derek to, which is a form of brain cancer, and very little research since the early 1960s, attacks mostly children. So Saturday, August 1st, 12 to 4, come have a good time if you're in that area. If not, just check it out if you want to donate for cancer research. I really appreciate it. So to the Gunfighters Club out there, thank you for what you do. These guys really take their time out and put a lot of effort into it. Most of them are cops, active cops, some retired, and they spend a lot of time into cancer research. So there's a couple of fine ladies, a couple of dancers, entertainers who have taken their time out for nothing to help out for cancer research. So thank you guys. I really appreciate it. With that being said, good morning. Good morning to the chat. See, the chat's already live. We appreciate it. And let's jump into it. John, what are your thoughts on the promotion of Terrell Anderson? What's going on in New York City? I mean, I'm sure you're excited about this promotion. Well-deserved, right? I mean,
it was all merit-based. It was all merit-based.
It makes sense that you're not on the job and Marlon's not on the job and I'm not on the job. But thank God we have Terrell Anderson.
Oh, yeah. No, I saw a lot of posts online congratulating Terrell Anderson. It was all merit-based, of course, There was nothing for us to question. I think everybody was like going, like wiping the sweat off their brow that we didn't do an episode like immediately on it. But there's just a lot of stuff going on that's a lot more important than this. But I think it's important to just deep dive into the fact that nothing has changed in the NYPD. There's been zero difference. I mean, there's slight differences between Ed Caban and now Jessica Tisch, but as a whole, nothing's really changed in the NYPD. I just want to point out, Marlon, if you could just put in the chat the address of that of the car wash, because it's cut off on the bottom because we're running our Kalshi banner at the bottom. So it's at the Cork and Bull. It's 259 Carlton Avenue in East Islip, New York. So for $25, I would 100% be going there. I like keeping my car clean. I clean my cars often. So if most a lot of my time during the week is spent cleaning my cars. So
John, what do you think about this? Pat Donahue is interested if men in Speedos could also wash the bikes.
Well, I'll do that for you, Pat. $25, I'll come there. I'll get myself a nice Amazon Speedo. I'll be right over. Anybody else? Chief Lucash, you want one? Let me know. I'm over that.
When you wear the Speedo, do you tuck the balls in or balls out? I mean, there's a big discussion.
I gotta make it. You gotta make it look bigger. Whatever it is. So so It's all right. Anyway, thanks everybody for joining us. Those of you guys that are on Instagram, just going to remind you, we cannot see your comments. If you want to comment, positive, negative, whatever, you want to join the chat, come over to @thefinest_unfiltered on YouTube. We always have a few hundred people in the chat discussing issues, and a lot of arguments get had off screen as well. So, and you can see those comments running on the screen as well. So appreciate everybody for being here. Yeah, I think, he gets promoted to deputy chief right on the heels of a huge scandal that broke out. I think that, and I think we defended him to a point there. We said that, like, this doesn't all fall on the shoulders of Terrell Anderson. But at the same point, I'm not going to make Terrell Anderson be a victim. And I'm not going to pretend that Terrell Anderson is good for law enforcement or has been beneficial to the NYPD or is someone that should align with anybody's views in law enforcement. Like, if we're talking about a competent law enforcement agency like the NYPD, Terrell Anderson's not that guy. If you're talking about a woke progressive city who is moving towards abolishing the police and moving towards a civilianized police force, Terrell Anderson's your guy. 100%. That's your guy. You know what I mean? If we're gonna move away towards police, go towards violence interrupters, Terrell Anderson's your guy. I think the scandal was huge. The scandal has huge implications, I think, because what happened during that scandal, and I'll play this video. So so it's not our mush mouths actually saying it. I'll play this video. Forgive the how it looks. Just focus in on the sound. I had to make some adjustments on this one. But this was the scandal that broke out. This is not even a year ago. This is July 11, 2025. Listen to this. Oh, I guess I don't even have sound. We'll take it back. Never mind. Never mind. That video is completely screwed up. I don't know what's up with that. Okay. But the scandal is basically that he was overriding psych failures. He was overriding serious criminal behavior. He was overriding people's drug use as the commanding officer of the personnel unit who was in charge in recruiting officers. Now, that is not a small allegation. And I think myself and Eric had defended him a lot during that time, that said that he's not innocent, but this doesn't stop with Terrell Anderson. This goes all the way up to the police commissioner. And this has been a practice that has been this is a practice that has been put in place for decades. And this was put in place, the practice to override was put in place for two reasons. It was put in place to further DEI hires, to further hiring Black and brown people, to further hiring women. So they knew that they would have to hire more unqualified people, right? And we've heard Tanya Meisenholder speak on that on numerous podcasts, talk about how they had to dumb down the psych eval, they had to allow more criminality in the history in order for them to hire more minorities who are actually the majority in New York City, but we're still calling them minorities today. So we could keep pretending. We'll keep pretending for this episode, the minorities. So that was done for that, and it was done for it was done to further DEI, and it was done for favors. Now look, Terrell Anderson aligns with that perfectly. He was put there for that reason, right? He was put there perfectly for that reason. He was put there to do that, to do those overrides, to not only for the favors for the upper echelon, but to further this DEI agenda that was happening for a very long time in the NYPD, particularly under the Bill de Blasio administration. Started hot and heavy. There was a lot of talk back then. Well, he overrode his authority. I don't agree at all. I still say this came from all the way down from the mayor's office. Terrell Anderson is not innocent, and now we heard nothing of this other than that he was immediately transferred. And now a year later, we hear nothing about the scandal. The same people that were hired that would have never been hired in the past are still police officers today. The unions fought harder for them than they did for myself, for Marlon Bethel, for the thousands of us that were chased out during the vaccine mandate. The unions fought harder for these individuals than I ever seen them fight for anyone, including active members today. And those individuals are still on the job. And only a year later, after numerous threats of lawsuits, not from Terrell Anderson, but from supporters of his, you know who they are. And they used like this little ponytailed fucking faggot to use all their talking points for them. and to push their narrative, and they use him like their little water boy, and they send them off. Yeah, go tell everybody this. Go do this. Here, hold the water. Go tell everybody this. Go push our narrative. And when they use that and they threaten that, now all of a sudden, 1 year later, after him being transferred, after all of this coming out in the media, now he's promoted to deputy chief. Doesn't look right. Doesn't smell right. Anyone that wants to say it's merit-based, let us know. We'll send you the email. You can come up here and tell us all about
it. John, before Marlon jumps in, I think brother Rob Lukash, man, got a great comment. And it's funny, but it's actually true. So Rob says, when he's the duty chief, how will he deal with a psych case? I think that is fucking great. That's great. It's funny, but it's true.
Yeah. How do I follow that up? Oh boy.
Happy Friday, Marlon.
Yeah. I'm 15 minutes, John. Remember? 15 minutes, bro.
Oh man, it's Friday. It's Friday.
No, that's all.
I was late, bro. I was late. Sorry. I didn't curse.
I think we've already talked about ball bags and I don't know, all kinds of crazy shit.
That's not a curse. Yeah. It's a slur.
Yeah. Well, listen.
Isn't cursing very subjective?
It's a curse to you, Marlon, not me.
Well. Anyway, listen. A lot to talk about with Terrell Anderson. I'm of two minds of it. At the same time, I'm glad that he, we talked about how he's just a cog in a machine, and I'm glad they didn't make him the fall guy, right? And that there's a lesson to be learned here about if the job is trying to railroad you, that your best way to fight it is to get in front of it and not just go along with it and fall back into the shadows. Okay. Your best way to fight it is to raise a stink about it. And obviously Terrell made phone calls to people, including I believe Eric Sanders and the Guardians, to help him out on this. And surely I think putting that media pressure helps. Okay. So that's a lesson for you guys out there, because I've said it many times before. One of my big regrets is when the COVID bullshit happened. I guess you can. It's 15 minutes are up. When the COVID nonsense happened, if I had to do it again, I would have made a big stink about it, and to the point where I get on the news, the job may have suspended me or whatever, but it would have been harder for them to just put me on the wayside, So that's a lesson for you guys. If the job is trying to screw you over, you got to get in front of it. You can't just hide from it. If that happens, your old life on the job is already over. So there's no going back to it. Okay. There's no putting the genie back in the bottle. Right. So we may be upset that, nothing has changed in the NYPD, because we do want change. But at the same time, I'm happy that he's, they couldn't make him the fall guy. Right. So on the other end of it, though, this does show you that the job does reward your silence, right? And if they feel that you can possibly bring information to light and harm them, that's when they really get scared. Okay. But I have another video that maybe put let's put some context into who Terrell Anderson is and about the initial incident last year. So let me play it.
Convictions or other infractions that should have disqualified them from being hired.
All right, Fox 5's Richard Giacobas joins us now with more on the controversy and why the police union says these cops should get to keep their jobs. Richard.
Steve Bianca, those 31 recruits should have never been hired as police officers in the first place. And tonight, it looks like they're being asked to hand over their guns and leave within 24 hours or face termination. The latest tonight from the NYPD confirming that those rookies lied on their exams and applications about their criminal history, illegal drug use, prior arrests, and about their previous employment status. Despite failing their background checks, the 31 officers entered the department's police training academy in 2023 and 2024. But during an investigation, NYPD officials discovered that during their application process at the time, those new recruits received final notices of disqualification, which legally prevented them from becoming part of New York's finest. But they were still hired, and that officials say is in violation of the law. The NYPD says once these final notices are issued, it cannot legally employ these individuals. The termination comes at a time when the NYPD faces a severe recruitment and retention crisis. But former NYPD lieutenant and John Jay College of Criminal Justice professor Ralph Salento says with these lies, who would want officers like these still in uniform?
Any of these recruits who lied on their application or during the application process about getting fired from former employers or their criminal past, what that serves as is a window into how they are going to be on the job.
The Police Benevolent Association tonight is pushing back against the decision to fire these officers, saying they should not be penalized for internal failures in the hiring process. Their statement reading in part, as far as they know, they were qualified to be New York City police officers because the NYPD hired and trained them. It is an absolute travesty that the department is trying to cover its tracks by summarily forcing them off the job without affording them the same appeal process available to other applicants. The former head of the NYPD's Candidate Assessment Division, Inspector Terrell Anderson, who was responsible for these hirings, has been removed. Anderson is currently, we're told, under investigation. Bianca.
Wow. All right, Richard, thanks for bringing us that story.
You know what's interesting about this? So I'm a big advocate and I support small unit leadership breakdown. So what does that mean? In any organization, I support small unit leadership breakdown, which means at every level of leadership, there's accountability, responsibility, and liability. And so on the onset, when Terrell Anderson was at the height of this controversy, both John and myself, and Marlon, I think you did the same. I'm not going to speak for you, but we supported Terrell Anderson saying, you know what, don't let them make you the fall guy. And now, however, we both agree that he's not completely innocent from this either. Now, I was told numerous times, oh, you can't blame Terrell Anderson. There's actually leadership above him that actually makes the final decision. Now, that may be true. I agree. Now, if you're in a position of leadership and there's someone above you who makes the final decision, are you ultimately fully responsible? And the answer would be no. However, do you have a stake in that? And the answer is yes, right? And that's why, because we talk about small unit leadership breakdown. So Terrell Anderson is not completely free. However, he should not be the fall guy either. But does he deserve to get promotion shortly thereafter to keep his mouth shut? The reason why I say that is because in his position as the commanding officer of the medical division, I'm just not the medical division, candidate assessment division, we're talking about disqualified recruits making it to the academy and eventually becoming police officers. Does he have a stake in that? And the answer is yes. Why? Because in order for it to get to that upper echelon that is going to make that final decision, it has to pass through Terrell Anderson's hands, and he has to make a decision also. So that's what I talk about small unit leadership breakdown, is at his leadership position, at his level of authority, it had to pass through the chain, meaning that through Terrell Anderson's hands, eventually signed off, and he sent it up the chain to get signed off. Now, if that's true, right, because I'm told, and we actually did some research on it, there's actually leadership in positions above him that actually have the final say. Now, that is true. However, I do think Terrell Anderson has a stake in it because ultimately, in your position of leadership, you signed off and you said, this is good to go, and I'm going to pass it up the chain. So, yeah, small unit leadership breakdown is extremely important because even we're talking about at the sergeant level. If something is going to make it through the chain of command, the sergeant at the frontline position, low-level management, has to make a decision, has to sign off on something and send it through the chain. So every level of leadership holds responsibility, accountability, and liability. So the fact that Terrell Anderson was promoted shortly after this, while there's still controversy, in my opinion, or did this just go away? So that's the question. did this controversial scenario or incident in the hiring process, did this just poof disappear? What was the resolve? Did we get any transparency from the NYPD that this wouldn't happen again? No. So again, I've often mentioned this, but I'll say this again. John Scola had said something a long time ago, and he said that the NYPD doesn't look to eradicate mistakes or actually fix problems. They just pay lawsuits, and pretty much what it is hush money, and just keep continuing on. So ultimately, what was the resolve? What was the decision made? What was the transparency to prevent this from happening again? We haven't heard any of that. Instead, Terrell Anderson was promoted, and you're led to believe that this poof just went away and everything's fine. And that's not the case here at all. The reality is this was never resolved. There are police officers out there that were disqualified. Do I blame them? No. If they were disqualified and they found a way to go through the loophole and get that job, and they were actually hired, shame on the NYPD. Shame on Terrell Anderson for signing off. Are you absolutely fully responsible? No. But shame on you for signing it off and sending it through the chain, because you have responsibility there. That's like saying someone says, you know what? As John often says, I don't want to steal your line, but John says, when it comes to the vaccine mandate, man, they'll send mother to the gas chamber. Now, if that's true, what if they say, you know what? From now on, we are going to send your mother to the gas chamber, and you go get your mother and you bring her to the chief. But he's was him that made the decision, but you brought her there, no? And it's kind of the same thing. So you signed off on it. So there's leadership and responsibility at every level. So the fact that Terrell Anderson got promoted, is this gone? Are there disqualified recruits still running around as police officers? Yes. Do I blame them? No. It is their job to try to find a way to get that. Did they lie? Sure. I'm sure plenty of them lied. But it's their job to try to get the job, right? That's the game. And the job of the NYPD to comb through that, do a good background check, and to make sure that we get qualified people to become police officers. So Terrell Anderson, well deserved. Congratulations. We have a lot of police officers out there that are disqualified, and apparently you had no hand in it. So well-deserved promotion. I'm sure he's a really nice guy. I know he's a nice guy. We came out together at the academy. He is a nice guy, but I can care less. Let's talk about how does this affect the NYPD, New York City, and what's the reality? What does this do for the rank and file right now? The rank and file says, Dan, if I was involved in some controversy, could I get promoted? Nope. Welcome to Tier 1, brother. If you're Tier 3, part of general population, this doesn't apply to you.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot with this whole thing, like a real lot with it. I'm gonna say, like, I'm gonna go back a little bit on Marlon. I agree with you that I think even though I was the loudest voice during that time, I think there were things if I could have went back, I would have did differently. I don't think that would have saved anybody, and I don't think that the Guardians and all of their lackeys, all of their water boys, I don't think they did anything to save Terrell Anderson's career either. I think the change in administration had a lot to do with saving Terrell Anderson's career. I'll get into that in a little bit, because and I just want to go backwards. I just want to say, like, you know, we're talking merit-based, we're talking all this stuff. I want to say, first off, I think that Terrell Anderson was a good cop prior to getting into the supervisor ranks, prior to becoming an empty vessel executive where use me. So I just want to say that. Like, I don't want anyone to say, like, oh, you know, John said you're a DEI hire. No, I didn't say that. I think that you were a good cop early on. And then I think as you moved up, you did what basically all executives do. You bend your pants over and you spread your ass cheeks. Like, that's it. You know, like, I don't, you're an empty vessel. You would have said or did anything. Use me. I'm a black face. Use me. That's basically you. Just like, no different than Dermot J.
Rodney Harrison then.
You know, you could be the next Rodney Harrison, or you could be a white face, a white immigrant Catholic, and say, I'm a white face, use me. I'm an immigrant, use me. Like Dermot J. You know, who is a great guy, by the way. I just want to say, you know, everybody put out a nice post about him, read it yesterday. I'll put a little disclaimer next to it. And he's a nice guy, right? I don't know Terrell Anderson personally. I know he came out right at the same time we did. I'll put a little disclaimer there. More than likely, he's a nice guy. I don't know him from a hole in the wall, but
he is a nice guy.
Yeah, he's a nice guy. Okay, great. So here's the thing, right? Though. The damage that was done to the job as a result of these hires, because again, it wasn't just these 24 people that were hired. We're talking 10 years of this. We're talking 10 years of hiring unqualified people to meet diversity agenda, to meet diversity goals, and to do favors for the upper echelon of the NYPD. Right? As the demographics of the upper echelon changed, 100%, the things that you were asked to do were going to be more egregious. Like the things that you were going to do, like, oh yeah, that kid just got arrested for robbing somebody with a firearm. Yeah, don't worry about it. No big deal. Everybody's part of a gang and robs people with guns. You know what I mean? 2 months before becoming a cop. Yeah. He ran a cop over with a car. Oh yeah, no big deal. Let's get him on there. Yeah, don't worry about it. Did we get that $15K from that sergeant that wants SDS? All right, good. Yeah, keep it going. So the effects that had on the NYPD as a whole, it goes way past the rank and file of the NYPD. It goes on the entire image and history of the New York City Police Department. So again, I don't fault Terrell Anderson. He was a cog in the wheel, but he has no integrity. And again, like I said, you cannot have integrity. You have to be ultimately compliant to your progressive masters at the top, or you're out of here. He has zero integrity, zero. Because I'll tell you right now, if they were like, oh yeah, this guy, he just got arrested. Oh, this guy failed the psych. Oh, this guy's got drugs in his system. Oh, this guy just ran a cop over. Yeah, I'd be like, yes, yeah, sorry, chief. Can't help you out there, buddy. Sorry. Would that be the end of my career? Maybe. I probably wouldn't be in charge of personnel anymore. Probably wouldn't be in charge of recruit hiring anymore. You know what I mean? But that's how I was. That's why I got forced out of the NYPD early, because I have integrity, and clearly he doesn't. I'm not saying he's innocent. It's like the commanding officer that was deep-throating the Marxist ideology of this entire vaccine mandate that was built on a lie. Are you innocent? No, you have no integrity. You weren't afraid. You were afraid of the job. You wanted to be close to the king. You wanted to bow down to Bill de Blasio and Eric Adams, and you wanted to show, look what an empty vessel I am. Look how good my ass looks when it's bent over. Look at it. I even shave my ass, not like John. John doesn't shave his ass and he doesn't pull his pants down. Use me. I'll be your empty vessel. So did I ever say that there shouldn't be any discipline towards Terrell Anderson? No, I never said that. Because now you have guys that are retiring. You have guys that will retire in the future. And the NYPD is not looked at as the top law enforcement organization any longer in the world. Now, when you go to get other jobs or when you start a business, people are going to think twice about, oh, you were an NYPD cop? Yeah, okay. I went to renew my HR 218. Now I use Big D Ballistics, officially listed. But prior to doing that, I went to do my HR 218, and I did it down in Florida. And I go there, and the guy's like, oh, here we go. I'm like, what? He's like, NYPD guys. He's like, none of you guys know how to shoot, and all of you guys got Fugazi guns. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? He's like, I'm just saying, if I qualify you with this gun, you can't be using a throwaway gun. I'm like, bro, I don't even know what kind of comment that is. It's absolutely ridiculous. It was the Florida State Police that were given that. I'm like, it's absolutely ridiculous. I shot. They tried to do everything to fail me, but I shot 100. So there was nothing they could do to fail. There was nothing they could do. They were giving me like a weird count, everything. They were riding me. And I'm like, and I left there and I'm like, yeah, those guys are jerk offs, but I get it. I get it because we're our own worst enemy. Now we're hiring people that are completely unqualified, should have no business being cops. There will be the corruption scandals you've seen under the Adams administration will quadruple in the years to come as these people enter leadership, as these people get used as empty vessel on top, because you get guys that were actually cops that are willing to bend their integrity, willing to violate the law, willing to go along with corruption, blatant, utter corruption. How bad is that corruption going to be when you have people that would have never qualified to be cops because the integrity they had upon entering the academy? I think the majority of us coming in, we were afraid. You were afraid. You weren't coming into the police academy with drugs in your system. You weren't coming into the police academy knowing you failed the psych 3 times and you got overridden. You weren't coming into the police academy knowing you just ran a cop over 3 months ago. So I don't think I agree. Well, although I agree with you, Marlon, I agree that there needs to be, like, the job fears bad press and they fear lawsuits. I totally agree with that 100%. And I think there was a lot more that we should have did as individuals prior to us allowing to even putting our papers in to retire or being terminated. We should have caused chaos. But I blame the unions because, like I said, I was a mushroom who was kept in the dark and eating shit. I had no idea how the system worked. I thought they had my best bet. I didn't know anything about Article 78. They never told us about Article 78. I didn't know the law. I would assume they would have told us about that. I would assume I would have been given my options prior to retiring. That never happened. The options were, you got to take it or they're going to fire you. Those were the options. It was, which was an ultimatum. And, you know, so we could have did that. I don't think that would have saved us. I think the reason Terrell Anderson was saved is because of his ties to the de Blasio administration. And I think what we told you is it's always a 3-card Mondani, right? You were always getting the same shit. You got a little bit different with Adams because he's got some vendettas with people. But now Mondani's administration is a complete retread of the de Blasio administration. And that's why I believe Terrell Anderson is now a chief, and you're not hearing a word about this. And just to back that up, I think that if he went public and he told everybody exactly what was occurring in the New York City Police Department, it would be detrimental to the New York City Police Department. And anyone that accepts our academy would no longer ever accept a member of, I'm talking across the country, every law enforcement agency would have no choice but to determine our academy and your service and time as a New York City Police Department, as a New York City police officer, no longer be considered law enforcement experience. Literally dumb it down to basically you're an unarmed guard, because it would have had detrimental effects on what was happening. And again, I think it's still happening today. I don't think anything changed. I think the same system that was in place that got exposed is still happening today. So, and I'll go further on that next time I go.
Yeah, a lot said there. To be fair, I think the range was more upset about like past NYPD guys who, you know, tend to be arrogant and a little cocky, and you know, when we go to other places, and you know, I've said this before that you know, rightfully we should be cocky, you know, because we do a lot more than, you know, in my short 15 years. And of that short 15 years, my 8 years in the precinct, you know, I did a lot more than cops and, you know, a lot of places will do in like 20 years, you know, 20, 30 years. So I think, you know, we have you know, we tend to walk around with a swagger when we go to other places. And I think a lot of, you know, that tends to where, you know, a lot of big cities do. So it's not just us. You know, the big cities like Chicago and LA, you know, walk around with a little swagger because, you know, they work in a lot more busier places. So I think that tends to rub a lot of other smaller locations the wrong way, you know. But I'm just gonna say that you know, it's terrible that nothing has really changed, you know. Um, Nothing has really changed, and I see in the articles now, I see all the usual people connected to the usual people who take knees and drink Kool-Aid for the city come in and they kind of run cover for all of this. Like in the Daily News, there's a part by Monahan, right? Where he says, let me put it up. Chris Monahan of the CEA, right? He comes in and he says, Anderson is very competent. He said he was doing his job the way they asked him to. The new administration came in and didn't want it done that way. Yeah, that's a real clean way of you know, covering it up. Never mind the fact that he's not going to talk about the fact that the job tried to railroad one of his members, you know. Let's not talk about that, right? But yeah, it's a real shame that nothing's really changed here, and you know, Anderson might be gone from the academy, but you know, whoever's there now is doing the same exact things and passing through unqualified people. And by the way, also those other smaller locations already look at us as not being qualified, you know, because I've heard from Florida, guys in Florida, they look at all these incidents that keep going viral, these fights with perps, and they ask, "Do you guys get training anymore?" You know, they see it. Okay, when they see all of our rookies being like overweight already, and our 2 feet tall female rookies, you know, they look at us as already a diminished police department. So we're already there.
Well, there's a couple of key flashpoints here I want to discuss, right? So first thing, I think that when I talk about the tiered system in the NYPD, the tiered system is real, right? It's unwritten. Something that we actually talk about often on the Finance Unfiltered, that there's a 3-tiered system, and it's real. It exists, and we give you the evidence time and time again to show you that. And so for Marlon, it's a great topic. It's a great discussion talking about what would it have been like if you said, if I just went completely EDP and actually spoke out. And that's exactly what they would do, is they would paint you as EDP. So what's an EDP? Our active retired police officer knows that. We're talking about anyone if you're not in the police department. EDP just means emotionally disturbed person. If John and Marlon and myself had spoke out in our journey towards the end of our tenure in policing, if we were extremely loud and boisterous at the end of our careers while we were still employed, they would paint us out as mentally insane. I mean, look, here's Marlon. Marlon was wrongfully terminated by the police department for not taking the vaccine. John had to vest out, retire. I made the decision to retire because I could no longer do the police work that was paid and trained to do. And here we are, giving our First Amendment speech in retirement and no longer connected to the police department. And we were painted out as racist, mentally insane, as radicals for speaking out about the police department issues. So while we were active, if you would have spoken out, they would have painted you as far worse. And so it didn't matter. What mattered is what tier that you're in. The problem is that we were all part of general population, tier 3. If we were tier 1 and we had the rank, we were the upper echelon, or tier 2, we had connected by nepotism, like Conor McDonald, or if we had those, if we were connected by cronyism, had the right connections, that's far different. But we were tier 3 in general population. Now, here's the other thing we talk about. I've seen it. I've traveled the entire country for almost 4 years by RV, and I spoke to people throughout the entire country. And they're disappointed with the police department. It's almost like disgust. And it's a huge comparison, right? Huge dichotomy. In 2005, in September, I went down to Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans in support to help out in the devastation from the hurricane. And I went down with the police department. We went down there with like 50 cars. And we were rock stars when we got down. I was a rookie at the time. I had about close to 2 years on the job. I came on in January 2004. This was right after Labor Day. I had close to 2 years. I was still a brand new rookie. I still smelled like the PX. I still smelled like cash sales from One Police Plaza. And we were rock stars, man. They loved us. We were the go-to policing. Every department, even the big city departments that came down to help out, they looked at us as big brother. And I can tell you now, in retirement, from September 2022 till now, we are not looked at as the go-to policing anymore. We're looked at as bums. Like, people ask me all the time, what is going on with that city? What is going on with that job? The job has completely made a 180, and the perception that we have is far different than before, and it's sad. And the other thing I want to talk about, Mike Eicher, he makes a great comment. He says, nice guy is a term for a guy who treats every interaction with fellow humans as transactional. You're absolutely right. So I took some notes. I just want to read them out. I took some notes here. And then we often talk about the nice guy syndrome in the NYPD. What is a nice guy? It's someone who avoids conflict even when something is wrong. So did Terrell Anderson confront the conflict that he was allowing people to move up and get signed off that were disqualified? Was he actually challenging that conflict? Was someone calling and saying, hey, these are DEI promotions that connected to a chief, you got to put them through? Did Terrell Anderson say, yeah, I have to do that? Or did he challenge that? Oh, but he's a nice guy, right? That's what a nice guy does. You want real leadership, someone who's a good guy that has the ability to challenge things, like John, Marlon, myself. Because we challenge things, because we're critical thinkers, we are no longer within the NYPD. They want yes men. They want people that are compliant. So that's what a nice guy is, someone that's compliant. Someone who's nice also has the difficulty of saying no, right? That's what it takes to have integrity, to stand on your 2 feet and say, no, I'm not doing that. seeking validation and approval from others. That's also what nice guys do. Ronnie Harrison, many of the upper echelon, seeking approval from the politicians. That's being a nice guy, but not being a good guy and do what's right for the police department. So when people often laugh about what is the nice guy syndrome, well, I'm telling you right now. What else is the nice guy syndrome? Struggling to set healthy boundaries. When you're the commanding officer of the candidate assessment division and you're allowing people that were disqualified to go through the chain and get signed off to become police officers, is that setting a healthy boundary? No. What else? Agree to do favors they don't want to do, meaning spineless. Like Dermot Shea, June 15, 2020, disbanding anti-crime. Terrell Anderson, allowing these disqualified recruits to become police officers. Another nice guy syndrome, suppress their opinions to avoid upsetting people. They want to be nice. They don't want to put their opinions out there because you don't want to be John and be angry John. You want to be Marlon, that you speak out. You don't want to be Eric. Oh, if you speak out, you're a radical. The three of us have spoken out in retirement, and we've been attacked because of our First Amendment speech. So we're not nice guys. And that's fine. I don't want to be called a nice guy. I want to be called a good guy, someone that stands on their integrity. Now, here's the comparison to someone who's a good guy. You say what you mean respectfully. You set boundaries without feeling guilty. You accept that not everyone will like you or approve of you. That's the difference. So if you want to know what the nice guy syndrome in comparison to being a good guy, I just gave it to you right there. That's the point. John, what do you think, brother?
I want everybody to like me. They just don't. Can't change everybody's minds, right? Opinions are like assholes. You know,
everybody's got one or a shaved one, right?
Yeah, dude, it's just wild, man. It's wild. What they say about Terrell Anderson? What was the positive comment that he earned it? Good for him. What was that comment?
Yeah, he was a good cop.
I gotta go pull it back up again. But he basically said that he was doing what the prior administration wanted, and a new administration came in and didn't want that.
Exactly. So like it's, and that's the thing. It's like, yeah, exactly. You're saying that he was an absolute puppet. Thank you, Terrell. You did a great job. You opened your office. You let the city of New York stick its hand up your office and use your mouth for you, and take your integrity, take your soul, and sell it out. And so I don't think that that's a good guy at all. I don't think that that's somebody with integrity. And I was always taught that integrity was a non-negotiable in policing. But now what I learned is integrity is a non-negotiable until you become an executive. And then you want to get a discretionary promotion. Then the furthest thing you need to have is integrity. Because I'll tell you right now, I look at all of yous like, yeah, you bended and you kept bending and you kept bending and you kept bending. Now, I'm not saying the guys that are out a while, but all you guys in currently, absolutely. I don't see how you don't bend your integrity. I don't see how you got past the mandate. I just don't see it. I don't see how any union head is still there. I don't see how they got past the mandate without fighting for it. I don't see any of this stuff, how all of this was allowed to go and nobody said a word. So I honestly think he did a horrible job. It's like saying, oh, it's not Terrell's fault. All this corruption was there before him. He just stepped in and took it over. It's like, yeah, you're right. It's not just him, but he shouldn't be rewarded for keeping his mouth shut. He shouldn't be rewarded for going along with it, because this is a devious form of corruption. This is absolute, utter police corruption. And Marlon, I get what you're saying. I totally get what you're saying. To be fair, we were always looked at as jerk-offs here and there. People look at cops like, oh, yeah, NYPD guys, they got a swagger, they're annoying, they speed, they got attitudes when they get pulled over. Yeah, that's definitely true. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about literally if law enforcement as a whole knew what the hiring practice of the NYPD was doing, the academy would no longer be accredited. No law enforcement agency across the country would take our time as time that was served. Every single member of the NYPD would have to go through a police academy. And that is the reason this is being covered up. That reason, and to protect the ego of a billionaire heiress. That is the reason. And does it all fall on her? Absolutely not. I mean, this is every police commissioner behind her. And I could only be fair and talk about what I know. I know that under Bill de Blasio, there was systemic changes into our hiring practices. And I'm just going to give it from then. From 2013 on, what they were doing was they were furthering this DEI initiative. They were hiring unqualified people. And in order to do that, they put this override position in place, and they were doing it. And they were doing it to also for favors for chiefs and favors for friends. And it's all blatant, utter corruption. It's systemic. And again, it's not just those guys that got highlighted, those 24 guys. There are hundreds of people who are off probation now. There are people in the supervisory ranks now that would have never got hired and should have never been hired. And you will see a plethora of corruption scandals in the future resulting directly from those hiring pools and those overrides. You will see it. I'm fully confident in all of it. This isn't a kid was smoking pot. This kid had a red cup. This kid resisted arrest when he was 17, and he really didn't resist arrest. He just moved a little when the cop grabbed his balls. This isn't any of that. This is robbing vehicles, assaulting police officers, carrying firearms, gang activity, drug use, major drug sales. This has been going on for over a decade. We're 13 years in now. We're 13 years in now. We haven't seen nothing yet. And again, I'm going to say that, NYPD Hush promotion, I'm going to say no. I'm going to say he wasn't rewarded for being quiet. He wasn't rewarded for being quiet because he was just in with the in crowd. That's it. The Mondani administration is a retread of the de Blasio administration. I wrote an article a while back, and the New York Post stole it and made it an exclusive. And I talked about the Brownsville Safety Alliance, the BSA. And I just want you to watch what the BSA is. The BSA is a few block radius in Brownsville where quarterly each year, so 4 quarters, right? For a period, for a few days, for about 7-day range, the police department steps back from an area in Brownsville. So they no longer handle 911 calls. And these violence interventor groups, which you're paying over $200 million a year for, step in and handle the 911 and the 311 calls. Now, they only do it, I believe, from 12 in the afternoon to 8 p.m. at night. And then obviously when shootings or anything violent occurs, they call 911 and the cops still handle it. So the cops really aren't left out of that, and they're still involved in that scenario. And Terrell Anderson is credited when he was the commanding officer of the 7-3 as creating this. This was his baby. This was Terrell Anderson's baby. So I want you to listen to what the Brownsville Safety Alliance is first. Let me pull that up. I clipped these videos out. So for some reason, I got to see what's going on with my clipping thing. For some reason, that the videos I clipped don't have sound. I don't know what the hell happened. So this is coming off This is coming off of a documentary that was put out by Dante de Blasio. It's called Policing Our Own. Who Keeps the Peace When Cops Step Back? So I'm just going to play a few minutes of it, but I want you to understand, and we'll get further into it as it goes on. I want you to understand that this initiative to have violence interrupters handle 911 calls, Dante and the head of, not the head, I don't know if he's the head or I don't know what he is, but the operational guy that's in charge, Bigger, we had quoted him before in an article. They both credit Terrell Anderson with creating this whole thing. So here's that, right? So I'm saying this is a reward now that the new administration's in, which is basically the de Blasio administration. It's all good, Terrell. Don't worry about it, because we're going to continue to just do the same things that we've been doing. So this is the Brownsville Safety Line.
And we're clear over here. Okay. Bye-bye.
The Brownsville Safety Alliance is a week-long event that stretches 2 blocks in Brownsville, where the police pull back and Brownsville End Violence Out, Cure Violence site that's in the section. We police our own people. So that means all the 911 calls, all the 311 calls are diverted to us. We get them, we take care of the situation. The first 911 call was for Dunkin' Donuts. The dispatch goes to.
So I'm gonna take that down now, and I'll show you where they credit Terrell Anderson, but understand that was his brainchild. Like, that was his brainchild. He came up with this as the CEO of the 7-3. This has been running since. And is this something that makes sense to anyone? I've been talking about the violence intervention program. Pat asked a great question last week. I actually been asking it now, and now I want to know. I sent a FOIL request out. I want to know the racial demographic breakdown of violence interventors to ensure that they align with the city that they serve, that they look like the city they serve. Because, hey, we police our own. So I want to make sure in Staten Island we're policing our own. I want to know how many Italian violence interventors there were. I want to know how many Asian interventors there are in parts of Brooklyn. I want to know how many Puerto Rican violence interrupters there are on Sunset. I want to know how many Dominican violence interrupters you got in Washington Heights. I want to know that the breakdown of violence interrupters meets exactly with the goals of racial equity of New York City, the stated goals. So, and so this was Terrell Anderson. So that changes a lot for me when I think about him. I see him as he went from, I often say the NYPD is like Game of Thrones. One day you're on the outs, next day you're close to the king. Well, Terrell Anderson was on the outs, and guess what? Now he's close to the king again. He was riding high under the de Blasio administration. I'm sure there was a lot of jealousy from the Adams crew about that. And now that administration has fell in absolute disgrace, and the disgraceful de Blasio administration's back in power, now he has rose back to become in a position of power. So that's what I think.
Yeah, there's a lot there. I saw a comment from Mikey G. Mikey G says, if you were ever labeled as a boss fighter, your career is pretty much in the toilet. I think Mikey G is alluding to, if you push back against the job itself, your career will be stonewalled as a boss fighter, which is true. Let me just recall what I've said about Joseph Kufo. Oh, you can't see him here. Let me get this out. He's that guy down there. You see that guy, Joseph Kufo, Deputy Chief Surgeon? Yeah, this D-bag over here, right? Who tried to basically get me suspended, or get me labeled as a boss fighter, for disagreeing with him, right?
Oh, you mean for asking questions? God forbid you ask questions.
Yeah, during the scamdemic, right? So that is true. But my thing is, if you get to that point on a job, your old life on the job is already over. Okay. If I hadn't thought in advance, this is another thing you have to do. You have to think in advance. Think 2 steps ahead of the job. Had I not thought 2 steps ahead of the job, this D-bag would have had me, God knows where I would have been prior to them firing me anyway, So but as soon as I stepped up for myself and I stood up for myself and I told them, no, I basically told them, you're not doing anything to me. Okay. They didn't do anything to me. So my point is that you have to think 2 steps ahead of the job, and you have to realize that your whole life on the job is over if you get to this point. You have to stand up for yourself. Otherwise, they're going to railroad you anyway. Right. And your career is far from being over. Okay. Your career is over if you want to sit in an office or get some cushy gig where you're not a cop anymore. Okay. But if you enjoy being a cop, what are they going to do to you? Okay. What are you going to do to me? I always say this, right? If you put me back on the job now, they're going to send me to the Bronx, right? Maybe put me in a sector car in the Bronx somewhere. But who cares? I like doing that. If you enjoy being a cop, there's nothing they could ever do to punish you. What are they going to do? Send you to the worst precinct? You've already done that. What are they going to do? Send you to an office? Send you to someplace where you're not doing police work? Okay. So I'll just take it slowly. All right. You can't do anything. And if you may not get grade again or some discretionary pay, but you can take the test and become a boss, and you can keep going up the boss's ladder until you hit captain. You can never take that away from you. And after certain years as captain, you're still going to get what a full bird inspectors pay. So you can't think that way, because if you think that way, you're going to remain silent and nobody's going to care about you, and you're going to fall by the wayside, and they're still going to screw you over anyway. Okay. So the point is, you got to get in front of that and you got to stand up for yourself. Otherwise, you're going to get steamrolled. And just to go over to Terrell Anderson, the thing is that, these guys, even if they were a good cop, and I see Terrell had a lot of collars as a cop, within that 5 years, a lot of collars, at a certain point, they get into that fold of the establishment, and they do not want to push back against the establishment, because especially when they hit like captain and all that, because they want that discretionary promotion. They want to hit chief, and they want to maintain those contacts so they can get a 6-figure job on Wall Street when they retire. Okay. They need to maintain their contacts so they could they could stay into the nice club, and that's the problem. They're willing to sacrifice that great career they had beforehand just to remain in the establishment and get that big paying job in the establishment after. And the value, the long-term health of the job, the long-term health of cops, the how they leave the job, none of that matters at that point.
So, Marlon, you proved my point, what I've been talking about. That's a nice guy syndrome of the NYPD. Because in order to move up the ladder, you have to be a nice guy. It's no longer measured by being a cop. I often heard when it comes to Rodney Harrison, I'm very critical about Rodney Harrison's decision on Daniel Pantaleo. I'm very critical about his response about what happened to Daniel Pantaleo when I heard him speak on Mike Colon, the New Haven podcast, when I heard him speak on 10-4 Tavern. I'm very critical of what he says because it's important. And I often get hit with a lot of opposition that he's a nice guy. And what is a nice guy? Back to what Marlon was saying. Let me go back to my notes here, because what you said, Marlon, is spot on. When you ask questions, you didn't avoid conflict. You brought on conflict, which means you had a challenge, right? And I said, what is a nice guy? A nice guy is someone that avoids conflict, even when something's wrong. Has difficulty saying no. Says yes, right? You have to be a yes man, right? Get on your knees, just like the many chiefs we've seen. This is important. Ready for this one? Back to being a nice guy. Hiding true feelings to keep the peace. Meaning you don't speak the truth. Means you live a lie. I think most of the upper echelon lives a lie. And that's what it is to be a nice guy. The difference between being a good guy and being kind to people is a choice that you make. Being a nice guy is because you have to hover and create that pathway for you to make it to the top. You have to be a nice guy. It means you avoid conflict. It means you hide your true feelings to keep the peace. You take the vaccine, or you go along with it, or you go along with people actually being pressured, your fellow cops being pressured, being terminated. You go along with it because you want to be a nice guy, because you want to avoid conflict. Those are the traits you need to make it to the upper echelon. Now, I often get hit with, oh, this guy was a good cop. Yeah, we're not saying Terrell Anderson wasn't a good cop. Is he a good manager? Is he a good leader to make decisions when it comes time of conflict? If another mandate gets implemented, will Terrell Anderson stand up against the mandate? If the mandate says as John likes to say, I think it's pretty funny, but it makes you remember it. If they say you have to bring in your wife in because she's going to get banged out by the Chiefs, and is that being a good guy or a nice guy? A nice guy is going to say, yeah, no problem. You avoid conflict, hide your true feelings. That's absolutely wrong. But you're going to fall in line and you're going to bring your wife in because that's what you're supposed to do because you're a nice guy. I don't love this guy. Everyone in the police department. That's why I say it's the nicest guys. So to make it up to the upper echelon, you have to be a nice guy. It means you have to avoid conflict. What did Marlon do also when it came to that surgeon? He set boundaries for himself by asking questions, healthy boundaries, right? He wants to know what he's injecting in his body and ask questions. What does a nice guy do? Struggle to set healthy boundaries. Doesn't set those boundaries, doesn't set limitations, right? Nothing's off the board to make it to the top. I think it's important that we have this discussion. Really think about it. If you're honest with yourself right now, if you're an active police officer or retired, ask yourself, the people that made it to the top, they were probably people that smiled at your face, right? They told you how great it is. I worked with some of those people. They smiled, told you, oh, you're doing a great job. And then behind your back, you found out from other people, all they're talking about you, talking about some of the paperwork you generated or some of the complaints you generated or things like that. Talk about behind your back to your face and smile at you. You're so great. Is that what you need? Think about it. You're a young police officer out there. You're a cop out. You need someone to smile at you. Go home. Your wife will smile at you. Your friends will smile at you. You need people that treat you with respect and dignity and hold the integrity and the sanctity of the police department so that you have a better career. Well, people think because they walk into a precinct and if their commanding officer smiles at them and brings them donuts and leaves donuts because you guys are doing a great job and tells you, oh, you're doing so great. That's what you need. That's what it takes. John, if I knew going back to my career, I would have just brought donuts every day and smiled at everybody. Don't worry, everything's great because I'm a nice guy. But we set boundaries. That's the difference. So some people often say, John, Eric, Marlon, did you speak out while you're on the job? Well, I guess you could say we did. Maybe our voices weren't so loud because they couldn't be, but we did. And we spoke out with our actions by setting boundaries, by setting limitations, by showing that we had integrity. Because if we didn't set those boundaries and show those characteristics or traits, we'd all be chiefs right now. I guarantee it. We would be chiefs right now. I'd be Chief Dim. You, right? Marlon would be a first grade detective. And John, you would have been Chief Macari, and we would have been the nice guys. Oh, those guys, oh man, you know what? Eric Dim came by one day and he smiled at me. Oh, yeah. What a nice guy. That's what we would have been. I guess I missed the boat.
Yeah, so George Misfud comes in, and I respect George. He says, and I believe him. He says, talking about Terrell, he says, he was a sergeant for me when I was the CO of Patrol Borough Brooklyn North Anti-Crime. Extremely hard worker and the real police. I mean, key word there was, you know, he was the police. Then he went into the executive ranks and became a politician, you know, and then he took part in blatant corruption like many others in that position before him and many in that position now that are continuing to do. So, you know, I always get it. Like, you know, we talk about Terry Monahan. I say it all the time. Great cop. Talk about Dermot Shea. Great cop. I talk about all these guys. Great cop. And then they became politicians. And that's what I'm saying. And then they became people that are in not only in direct opposition of my viewpoints, but direct opposition of the health and safety of all of New York City and the health and safety of every member of the NYPD. The solvency of the NYPD, the solvency of our pension system, all for their own personal gain. And look, to be fair, right? To be fair, if it was not for the vaccine mandate, I saw a lot of bullshit early with the politics of de Blasio because I am political and I always paying attention to politics and I always interacted with politicians. It's not anything new for me. I did it even when I was on the job. I didn't do it publicly, but I would send them emails. I would call their office. I would show up at their office. That's just who I am and who I've always been. But to like look at things now from the outside, I mean, we're looking at a much higher level view than people that are on the inside. You know, so when you're still in the system, you might not see all of the things that are wrong. But come on, to tell me that you don't know that you shouldn't hire a guy that has drugs in a system, that's failed the psych 3 times, that just ran over a cop the month before and was arrested 6 months prior to that for stealing a car, and he ran the cop over in a stolen car, to tell me that you didn't know that you shouldn't hire a guy that's in a gang that was just arrested for having a gun on him, to tell me those things, like you can't justify that to me. You don't need to be outside the system to know that that's wrong. You don't need to be outside the system to know that that's corruption. You don't need to be outside of the system when they're like, look, we don't want you to hire all the white candidates. We want to make sure that we have X amount of blacks, Hispanics, and women in there. We cannot have too many white candidates. The whites qualify at a higher rate, and we need to keep those numbers down. To take part in that is blatant corruption. You have absolutely no balls, no integrity, and you do not need to be outside of the New York City Police Department to know that. You did that to be part of the system. You did that to fit in, and anything you did in the past as a result of that, in my opinion, it doesn't matter any longer. You are no longer that. So was is the key word there for me. And I'm just going to go further on why I believe Terrell Anderson was promoted. And here's Bigger in his own words.
Believe it or not, it was the brainchild of a police officer.
Is host here? More. Is host with you?
No, she's Dr. Davidson, but I don't know.
But she's in today.
By presenting our
Okay.
people with different environment and the resources that are available to them, we can also fight crime that way. And also, it's about humanitarianism, right? Just coming up Boylan Avenue on my way here and just seeing the conditions, and me knowing that as a precinct commander, it's okay if me as precinct commander and my cops are not the answer. You're the answer.
My name is Terrell Anderson. I'm an inspector in the NYPD. Police pullbacks, I think that's a misconception. It's a public safety strategy. And what I did was I moved my officers who were like, 24/7 foot post in a crime-ridden, needy area, and replaced my officers with the community and community-based organizations, the CMS organizations, the crisis management system, and placed my officers in other locations, not too far. It's the community as a whole. And us as the NYPD, we are part of the community, but there's also other organizations that contribute to public safety as well. And we want to partner with them in reaching out to people and trying to undo the underlying issues that cause crime.
And I rest my case.
Yeah, I think Zohran Mamdani might have found his new police commissioner. I think if Jessica Tishover bails out, I think she found him. I think Zohran Mamdani found them. Sorry, Rodney Harrison, but I think he found them.
Clear and convincing evidence. Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, his name is Terrell Anderson.
Yeah, but to be fair, most of the black chiefs are like that anyway. Not for nothing.
They're all nice guys, bro.
And the white guys aren't. I mean, what?
Yeah,
He's like, with me, I'm a black guy, and I'm gonna push this bullshit that doesn't work. And I believe, like, come on, the guy did proactive police work. The guy was in anti-crime. He doesn't believe any of what he's saying. He knows that it doesn't keep crime down. He knows it's a fucking grift, and he's out there lying. And he's on. Make sure you go over, give Dante de Blasio a follow on YouTube. He's got 25 subscribers. That video went, that thing went viral. Come on, did they think that was going anywhere? No, they knew that wasn't going anywhere. He did that to be close to the king. Opened his office, empty vessel. That's why he's promoted. Compliance, silence, no integrity. That's why he's promoted to chief. Has nothing to do with anything else. That scandal just got covered up.
Yeah, Marlon, I'm not going to let you off on the hook on this one because, I often say, where is that white chief to speak out? They're all the same. White chief, black chief. The bottom line is they're all nice guys to move up that chain. And the reality is Terrell Anderson, he just supported defund the police. He supports defund the police. That's what he's telling you. We don't need police in this area. Let's have a civilian-based organization. I'll put my cops in the right spot. So what he said is, let's defund the police. He regurgitated what the Democratic Socialists are saying. He doesn't even realize it. Maybe he does because he's pandering to him because he's a nice guy moving up. Listen, I came out with him in the police academy. I know he's a good cop. I could care less. At this point, you moved up the ranks. You're supposed to hold the leadership. So I get the black chiefs, but it's the white chiefs too. They're all the same. What it is, the black chiefs and the white chiefs, they all suffer from the nice guy syndrome. And what Terrell Anderson did was he supports defund the police.
You know the difference between a black prostitute and a white prostitute? Nothing.
Open for business.
Well, I'm not talking about that angle. I'm talking about the angle of that the black chiefs especially have all ingested this progressive crap. Right? They all, they're all cowards. All the chiefs are cowards, right? But
no, nice guys. Nice guys.
Well, yeah, I think there's a difference between them going along to get along, and then there's the black chiefs that have ingested progressivism to the core, and they all think this way. Okay, so that's what I'm simply saying when I talk about black chiefs. Okay. And that's a whole other discussion, and it relates to what I've said before about the American black community. We're not going to go into here because that's a whole other discussion, but that's what I'm getting at. And that's why these communities are the way they are still. Okay.
Well, Marlon, let me ask you this. I want to interrupt you, but what's the difference between Terrence Monahan and Terrell Anderson, honestly?
Well, the difference is, on top of all being the same cowards, the difference is Anderson ingested the progressivism. Whereas Monahan will go home and say that's bullshit. Whereas Chell will go home and that's bullshit. At home, he'll tell you it's bullshit. right? Now, Chell tells you all the time that's
But
bullshit.
you think, wait,
But
you
when
think
he was
Terrell?
chief, he was
You think
guzzling it
Terrell
all
really
down.
believes that? I love you, bro.
Yeah, I do.
But you think Terrell really believes that?
Yeah, I do. I think all the black chiefs believe it. I think it's part of the American black community, and again, that's a whole other discussion. But I think it's the product of progressivism being infecting that community for decades. Okay, so I think that's the difference. I think Terry Monahan, I think Chell, when they're here, they'll dance, sing, and dance for the progressives, but when they go home, they're conservatives. Like John says, they're progressive in the streets, conservative in the sheets. Yeah, when they go home, Whereas Terrell, they guzzle that progressive shit on duty, off duty. That's it. That's it's a
I
product
don't
of
know if I agree with that, bro. That's like literally saying that they're idiots. That's like literally saying they're idiots. And I could look at Terrell Anderson, and I know people that know him, and just the people that are lauding him on here, Pat Donahue, George Misfun. I know that guy's not an idiot. I know that guy's a sharp guy. There's no way he believes what the bullshit that he's pushing. There's no way he believes backing off of that community is going to change anything in the 7-3. There's no way he believes that. It's a grift, dude. It's just easy to believe that because again, does he want to fit in with his community? Yeah. Does he want to ride being lauded as, oh, look at this black face. Oh, let's push him ahead. We'll get him up there. Yeah, probably. It's hard to not flatter yourself when you're being flattered, dude. And the whole city of New York's telling you, oh, yeah, you're a marginalized community, so we're going to bump you ahead of everybody else, and we're going to put you ahead. But like, I don't think that they're idiots, dude. I just don't. I don't think that I've grew up with a lot of black guys. I worked with a lot of black guys, and I do not think that anybody that grew up in New York City that went out there and was a good street cop is believing any of this bullshit. Because I'll put the black guy that I grew up with that becomes a cop, that's a good cop, he's on the same intelligence level as the white cop. Because guess what?
I'm not talking about any of that. So.
That's what you're saying, that like they're
no. It has nothing to do with intelligence. I'm saying that
in the sheets as John Shell was.
Yeah, well, I'm saying that progressivism has infected that community so much that it's the thing is, right? I tend to have I talk about a lot of against a lot of this stuff, and I do it with family. And when I'm with family, it's like everybody around me is drinking the Democrat Kool-Aid, and I'm not, and I have to defend these points all the time, Or a lot of these, you're telling me a guy like Anderson doesn't believe this stuff, and he's gonna go home and he's gonna defend doing this stuff to all the people, or he's gonna speak up against this stuff against the people in his peer group and his family. No way. People like listen to Rodney Harrison give interviews. He's not on the job anymore. He's not a cop anymore. He's still drinking progressive Kool-Aid. Okay, they all are. Because that's culture. That's become part of, unfortunately, the progressivism has become part of American black culture. So the cops that you grew up with may not have felt that way, but they're not chiefs. Okay, they're not the guys who are chiefs. The guys who are chiefs, especially on top of being nice guys, having a nice guy syndrome, are all believe in the progressive bullshit. Okay,
at work.
Everywhere, at work,
just
off
like
work,
John Shell was deep throating all of
at
this
work.
At work,
yeah,
and I'm telling you, so are these guys. There are a couple of idiots that don't know politics, don't know the founding of this nation, and you could find them on both sides. But overall, to succeed in the New York City Police Department, you need to deep throat Marxist ideology. You needed to have deep throated COVID. You needed to have deep throated DEI. And all of it's bullshit. I'm sorry. You grew up in New York City. It's bullshit. I'm the only thing I'll say about minorities, and I hate even using that word because you are the majority in New York City. I hate using the term minorities, and you are the majority on the New York City Police Department. Hate using the word, but again, I'll play theater here today. The one thing about minorities I'll say is they think that it's okay. A lot of minorities. I'm not saying they. A lot of minorities that I've spoken with think it's okay to discriminate against white people or majority populations. It's okay to discriminate against you guys because you guys had it good in the past. It's okay to discriminate now. It's okay that we're making all these bullshit hires. It's okay that we're making all these bullshit promotions because in the past, and I see that time and time again. You could go on any one of my social medias and you'll see that time and time again. This has always been, it's always been. Now it's different because it's not you guys. That's the argument, and that's a dumb argument. It's a stupid argument because guess what? I could flip that thing on you right now because now you're the majority. Now you're the majority. Now the majority gave you supremacy. Now it's okay to discriminate against the majority. Apparently, you guys don't know the Constitution of the United States. Apparently, you guys don't know that the United States is a republic and not a democracy. We're not ruled by the tyranny of the majority, and it's not okay to discriminate against the majority either. Like, yeah, I say that there are guys that are dumb? Yeah. But I think when you look at the upper echelon of the NYPD, they all got about the same intelligence level. They all got the same thing. They are deep-throating this ideology for the rewards for them, for personal gain. Doesn't matter, black, white, Hispanic, whatever that ideology is at the top, they're going to all gobble it up. It doesn't matter what it is.
Here's what I think. And this is the reality. I think that Terrell Anderson, Terrence Monahan, John Shell, you take any one of these chiefs that moved up. I don't think there's no color in there. There's no color in there. There's no differentiation or distinction there at all between color. I think it's all about politics at that point. And I think Terrell Anderson, like Marlon, we talk about the community, right? I don't think Terrell Anderson doesn't identify with the Brownsville community. I would put my last dollar that he lives anywhere near Brownsville. I don't think he identifies with that community at all. And he knows damn well he was out doing anti-crime. He was in narcotics. He knows damn well what Brownsville needs. They need intrusive policing to actually stop or even just curb some of the crime that happens there that's been played since for many years. I mean, I have generational family that had businesses on Pickett Avenue and New Lights Avenue, hat stores and shoe stores. There was a small Jewish community, even when it became a mostly predominantly black community. It's been plagued with crime for many years. And I know damn well Terrell Anderson doesn't believe that. And I think that doesn't even come back down to a form of intelligence. It comes down to what I said. It's the nice guy syndrome. I think Ronnie Harrison still suffers from that nice guy syndrome. Why? Because Mike Aisha made this comment earlier. Being a nice guy is transactional. The reason why they're nice guys is all transactional. And Ronnie Harrison is still a nice guy because he's transactional. Because what is available out there? Still keeping that pathway open to get the next gig or another job or become Zohran Mamdani's police commissioner. I think Terrell Anderson gave the exact information to be the commissioner for Zohran Mamdani or be the commissioner for Eric Adams or be the commissioner for former Mayor Bill de Blasio. Why do I say that? Because at the time that he was the commanding officer for Brownsville, it wasn't Zohran Mamdani that was the mayor. It was Eric Adams. It wasn't even Eric Adams at the time. It was former Mayor Bill de Blasio. So it didn't matter. You have all the same mayors right now following the same template. And I think Terrell Anderson has been shoveling shit for them this entire time. So did Terrence Monahan. So did John Shell because it fits the narrative. And I know damn well not one of these guys would ever want to be caught at home speaking the truth by accident. The difference between Marlon, John, myself, our friends and listeners here on the podcast is that the same conversations we have behind closed doors are the same conversations we have right now. And if Terrell Anderson ever got caught having a real conversation, or Ronnie Harris or Terrence Monahan or John Shell, it would be far different from what they put out there. I don't believe that they believe that at all. I grew up with a lot of black people. I grew up in Stapleton. I lived in the Bronx for a decade. Had a lot of black friends, a lot of Hispanic friends, and most of them don't believe in this bullshit, honestly. They really don't. I think a lot of people in the community want to regurgitate this and have people believe that the people in the community believe this. Well, most people in the community know it's bullshit. They just don't have a voice. And Terrell Anderson knows damn well. But again, it's the nice guy syndrome because it's transactional. So Mikey, I agree with you 100%. And they all follow this template. They're all full of shit. Terrell Anderson knows damn well that if it was 10 years ago, and Mike Bloomberg, I'm sorry, not 10 years ago, it was 15 years ago, and Mike Bloomberg was the mayor, do you think Terrell Anderson would be saying, community-based is what we need? That's a great strategy. No, he would say intrusive police work is what works. If former Mayor Giuliani was the mayor, Terrell Anderson would tell you how great broken windows is. They're regurgitating exactly what their politicians want. They're just They're out there, as John likes to say, deep throating, whatever, sucking their asses with a ball gag, waiting for their response. Somehow Terrell Anderson doesn't even realize that he supports defund the police. Let's move the police. Let's bring the community-based. Let's have them out there policing the neighborhood. Really? I know damn well that's not what you believe in. Full of shit. But they have to live with it. They have to lay down at night and live with their lies. I don't believe that they believe that. I think when it comes to the upper management, it doesn't matter if they're black, doesn't matter if they're white. They all suffer from the nice guy syndrome because none of them have integrity.
That's it. They have the same exact character traits. They have the
Yeah,
same
but-
exact character traits. Under the Bill de Blasio administration forward, it's the same fucking guys that rise to the top. And it ain't the cream, baby. It's just not.
Yeah,
It's actually like the shit at the bottom. Those are the ones that rise to the top. You know, the little like grinds that are in your coffee. That's who rises to the top. It's not the cream. The cream gets thrown out.
Yeah, but there's a difference between doing it for your career and going home and saying that's bullshit. But it is what it is. I gotta do it for my career. And going home and then regurgitating the same bullshit. And that's what I'm saying. Is the difference. Because guys like Anderson and Harrison, they all go home and they regurgitate the same bullshit because they're from these communities in New York City that heavily guzzle the bullshit. Okay. Now, keep in mind, Terrell grew up in, I think he grew up in Brooklyn and Brownsville, either Brownsville or Bed-Stuy. Okay. These guys all come from those communities. Okay. And I know, I saw a comment there from Miss S. She goes, really, Marlon, all blacks, that is an absolute. Well, I agree with you, Miss S. So let me correct that. Not all blacks. Okay. But a large majority of them, the American black community believes in that progressive bullshit. Okay. Especially in those inner city black neighborhoods. Okay. All right. This is why they keep voting Democrats. Okay. If I was wrong, you'd stand a chance as a Republican in those areas. But you know I'm right because you as a Republican stand no chance in those communities. No chance. Okay. It would take decades for you to stand a chance because it would take decades for you to cut through all the decades of prior bullshit that's infected those communities. Okay. Democrat policies that people think it's the way it has to be. Okay. So you know, I'm gonna have to push back on all of that because again, you find me a black executive, go watch Corey's show. A lot of them come on Corey's show. You find me one who talks conservatively, and I'll be happy to say I'm wrong. But you ain't gonna.
The white chiefs don't talk conservatively either.
They don't talk conservatively either, though.
Yeah, the white chiefs don't.
How
talk
do I know
conservatively
what? I personally, when I look at Rodney Harrison, I think he's a conservative. I don't think he's a left-wing progressive. I don't think he thinks that Mondani's. I don't think that he whatever he endorsed a part of his plan. I think Rodney Harrison's a conservative too. I think he's woke in the streets, conservative in the sheets.
No way. No way.
I do, and I think the same thing about you cannot be a proactive cop and believe these things. I'm sorry, you just cannot. It's an oxymoron, dude. You just cannot believe these things.
But that's
called progressivism, John.
You watch New York City transform from a city of crime. You watch the neighborhood you grow up in become a city of crime with crackheads and burnt out buildings to becoming gentrified, where you got all these hippies from Milwaukee moving in with their open toes and sandals and their wives carrying the groceries, and they got the little baby strapped on them. They're like, eh. And now they got all little art galleries in your neighborhood and restaurants, and money's coming in. And now you're making more money than your family ever had. You cannot tell me that they believe that shit. It is fucking bullshit. I'm sorry. These guys, when I talk about these guys, I'm talking about police executives today in Democratic controlled cities. They are the worst of the worst. They're the worst type of man you could ever interact with in the world. They are exactly that. They are empty vessels. They all have the same exact character traits. They are willing to do anything. And yes, I believe for those that were good cops, the guys like the Terrell Andersons, the guys like the Terry Monahans, those guys specifically, they are woke in the streets, conservative in the streets. Rodney Harrison, another good cop, woke, in the streets, conservative in the sheets. Look, we called it for years about John Shell. We would play him with all this bullshit about we don't enforce immigration, we don't do this, we don't need to keep our border safe, the federal government just needs to do their job. And then all of a sudden now he's at the White House, he's posting things, one door closes, next open, God bless Donald Trump. It's like, yeah, bro, what about you and your buddy Kaz? What about Kaz? He had Joe Biden, pictures of him and Joe Biden, and pictures of him and Kamala Harris. He was pushing all these left-wing talking points. And now all of a sudden he's a conservative. These guys, they're all the same, dude. They're empty vessels. They're empty vessels.
Well, that's my question here. Marlon, since we're talking about it, and I think this is a great conversation. To say that none of them believe it would be absolutely ridiculous. Maybe some of them actually do believe it. Maybe they have lied to themselves so much that they actually start to brainwash themselves. It's very possible. But that's why I say if this conversation is true, why haven't we had one so-called white conservative chief speak up and say the DEI atrocities that have happened to the job are eradicating the police department? That's why we're no longer go to policing. The corruption that we've seen right now is out of control. The pay for play, the amount of overtime that's just been handed out excessively so chiefs could have a little fun. How come one white chief has not spoken out? I've been waiting for that. I've been saying all that. Where is that one white chief? Who's active? Who's active right now? Because we have Rob Lukash who speaks the truth. But he's not an active chief. I'm talking about an active chief. Where's an active chief that actually stood up and stands out? Do I think Terrence Monahan believes what he said? Believes getting on a knee is the right thing to do? Absolutely not. He has to live with it. But I think for him, it's more important to be a nice guy and to be transactional and play this game. I think for Rodney Harris is the same thing. I think for Terrell Anderson, I think they have to make this ultimately conversation with themselves. I'm sure on one side they know what the truth is, and the other side is that little devil's like, yeah, but you can move up. You could be police commissioner one day, and that devil wins every time with these people. Why? Because they're weak. Nice guy syndrome means weak. Because if you have true strength like yourself, Marlon, you would be terminated. If you stood up for what you believe in and you actually had limitations and boundaries, you would no longer be a member of the police department. Hello, here we are. So that's the reality. Marlon, do you see any of them that would be willing to stand up and say this isn't right? John Shell, even in his retirement, can't completely come out from what he said because his whole life would be a lie. So here's the reality. Where is that one active white chief to come out and say, you know what? Enough is enough. Where is he? Does he exist?
Well, they're playing the game, But if you listen to their statements, you can see that they, if you listen to a lot of the interviews, you can see that they don't believe the bullshit that they go along with. They're not going to outright come out and say it because they're playing the game. They know that if they come out against the progressivism and that's the end of their security contracts in Wall Street. That's the end of their political connections. There's no more chance of getting back on the job, which they all want to get back on the job. These losers can't move on with their lives and no longer be called chiefs anymore. Okay. So, but the difference is, like I'm saying, the difference is, again, that there's doing it for promotion, doing it to stay in the club, and there's also doing it because you're an ideologue and you believe in the crap. And that's what I'm saying is the difference. And again, both sides want to do it to a degree to keep it into the establishment. But I'm saying that when you get guys from communities, inner city communities, who grew up in these inner city communities, okay, they all are drinking that progressive Kool-Aid. If you grew up in Bed-Stuy, you grew up in Brownsville, you grew up in Rochdale, okay, Rodney, you grew up in these inner. I'm sorry, but the people you're around, the culture that you're around, okay, is different than if you are that black chief who grew up, whose parents, moved out, and they moved out, got a house in a maybe a white neighborhood or a more gentrified area. It's different. And I'm telling you that because when I came here, I came in the 6-7 precinct. We living in 6-7. And when I moved out to the 6-3 in a house, you realize, holy crap, things are different here. And I was a kid. And even as a kid, I know it's different out here, So you have that upbringing that's like that tends to be more like not the stereotypical upbringing of the black inner city youth is just it's just different. It's a different culture. It's a different lifestyle. It's a different way of thinking that you know. And I'm saying these guys grew up in these inner city neighborhoods, and that's why that have been the tendrils of progressivism and Marxism has infected them throughout their upbringing. And it's all the people that they grew up with around them thought the same way, and it's hard to break out of that glass bubble,
See, we get called racist a lot because Marlon group identifies. Every time I've been called a racist because of Marlon.
Marlon, you're the one that makes us racist.
Yeah. Wait. Before you guys go further.
But
I
can't be racist. I can't be racist, John. I'm black.
Oh, that's true.
That's true.
You're right.
When it's convenient, Marlon, right?
I'm sorry, I forgot. There I go again, forgetting these are poor lessons. All right. It's time for a message from our partners over at Kalshi. We make predictions every single day about pop culture, the economy, and the biggest stories making headlines. Kalshi is America's #1 predictions market. It lets you trade those predictions in a live market. Will The Odyssey win the Oscar for Best Picture? We are all kind of liking this one, So this is not investment advice, but if you're paying attention to what's happened in the media around the Odyssey, I mean, I'm not saying to do it. You make your own trades, but we kind of like that one. Right now, The Odyssey winning the Oscar for Best Picture is currently trading at 49%, meaning a $200 trade would pay out $394. On Kalshi, you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there's no house. And as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position. For a limited time, download the Kalshi app and use code FINEST to get up to $500 in bonus credits when you trade $25. KALSHI, Kalshi. Trade on anything. 18 plus only. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see kalshi.com/regulatory. So appreciate everybody. If you guys want, we have right here, right on top of my head, there is a QR code. You could scan that with your phone, and you could get up to that $500 in bonus credits when you trade 25. So anyone want to take advantage of that Kalshi, recommend doing so here or downloading the app and use code FINEST.
So I want to read a comment here, and I think it's important. It's kind of what we talk about. So we talk about the nice guy syndrome, and I think a lot of cops in the NYPD avoid confrontation. There's a healthy confrontation. I'm not talking about physical confrontation or having an argument. I'm talking about a healthy conversation. So Cobbs 3506, what's up, brother? He says, all due respect, I think you guys are being hard on Marlon and you're disregarding his unique perspective, incoming insights on his own family's interactions. He has a point. So I don't think we're being hard on Marlon at all. We have nothing but love and respect for Marlon. But this is what we're talking about, is that the three of us challenge each other, and we have real conversations and real healthy debates, because it's important that we give our truths, our own perspective. And that's really what it comes down to. But being a nice guy, if the three of us were all nice guys, and every time John spoke and I just took it down my throat and, oh yeah, that's great, or Marlon said, oh yeah, I love it, you would probably turn the channel and you wouldn't be watching the show. Or every time I said something, Marlon was like, oh yeah, you're the best, you wouldn't be watching the show anymore. Yeah, I respect Marlon. That's why I'm willing to have a healthy debate, and I find him intelligent, and John as well, which is why I want to have healthy conversations and debates, and which is why we do. If I thought they were idiots, we wouldn't even have these conversations, or they thought I was an idiot. Same thing. So that has nothing, and that's the problem with this nice guy syndrome, is people are afraid to have these conversations with each other, healthy debates, and confront each other. It's healthy. We confront each other all day. We're on threads. We agree, we disagree for the benefit of the show, so that we could help. If we was all three of us just constantly said, oh yeah, everything you said is perfect, the show wouldn't go anywhere, and you probably would be watching something else. So I think it's important that we have these conversations, and actually challenge someone in a healthy way is a level of respect.
Yeah, I saw a couple other comments there. I saw a one from John Billy. John Billy says Marlon contradicts himself the other day. He was saying that the U.S. should adopt the police culture of China. Well, I don't know when I said that, John Billy. You know,
What I tell you about
anytime.
this guy, bro? Why do you acknowledge this guy?
No, you know
There's
why I
certain
did
people I won't acknowledge any longer. They're just too far gone.
That's actually pretty
They're
funny.
like, they're too far gone, bro.
No, you know the reason why I'm only bringing him up is because every time I talk about China, people are like, "Oh, he loves China. He wants us to be like China." No, I bring them up because I want this country to do better to compete with them on the global economic stage. Okay, and if they're, I've also said this before that socialism and that all that bullshit doesn't work in America. But for some cultures, if they pick that and if that works for them, then that is their decision as a sovereign place. I only bring them up because America needs to compete and do better. Okay. I also saw another comment there from Anthony. Anthony says, Marlon, I usually have no problem, but you sounding like a social worker this morning, making excuses for these tools actions. I'm not making any excuses, Anthony. I'm just pointing out I'm just pointing out the differences between these chiefs, and I'm kind of pointing out that how much progressivism has become cultural now. Okay, and also I've said this before. Part of the reason why they want to DEI up the place, right, and basically have every executive be a minority or black is because in a progressive victimhood pyramid, these groups have been brainwashed into thinking that rugged individualism, right, is something that must be squashed, and we have to embrace that collectivism. To embrace the warmth of collectivism. So if they make every chief black or minority, and they marginalize white chiefs, they're putting in people who are more conducive, who are more inclined to accept further collectivism. Okay, so that's all I'm simply pointing out with that. And yes, KB in NYC brings up this comment. It's our time, and yes, that's exactly what we've referenced before. That this is a phrase that's been used by many people in the Adams administration. It's our time, meaning that, oh well, in the past, whites were able to discriminate against us, so now it's our turn to discriminate against them. It's fair. That's what that statement really means.
Yeah, it's time to even the score. You're 100% right. I think that's the template. When people say it's our time, it's meaning it's time to even the score. And somehow people have justified it also. We've been wrong for so many years that it's okay to take it out on the white guys. And I think a lot of white people also find themselves saying that as well. Kind of like that white guilt syndrome.
Yep.
White guilt syndrome, the nice guy syndrome. These are all cover-ups from people afraid to actually have confrontation and tell the truth. And confrontation can be healthy. And I don't often say it. I think Mikey Scher put it up. Opposition meets opportunity. And it means not just opposition of appearance, but opposition of ideals, opposition of the way you see the world. I mean, myself and John have had numerous conversations with Edwin Raymond. And I don't think the three of us agree on anything. And yet we've had conversations of respect, complete opposition, and it meets opportunity. At this point, do I agree with anything with Edward Raymond? No, but I respect him because we've had good conversations. We have an opposition can meet opportunity. At least understand why someone has their opinions, what their perspective comes from. And I think that's healthy in that manner. And it goes beyond being a nice guy and being a good guy. And the difference of good guy, I think, is willing to have those confrontations, willing to say no. Setting boundaries is healthy. I mean, we can't always walk around as if we're Switzerland. You can't always say you're neutral. And to me, it's a little scary if someone is liked by everyone and you don't have any opposition. You have to ask yourself, did that person actually stand their ground? Did they ever actually stand for something? Because how could you just be loved by everyone? How could everyone agree with you or you agree with everyone else? It's absolutely ridiculous. And even like when I was working at PSA 7 as a special operations lieutenant, I would always say, if the patrol cops hate me, I'm doing my job. If the special operations cops love me, and the patrol cops hate me, I'm doing my job, right? And if the desk officer hates me, I'm doing my job because we're bringing in bad guys. We're bringing in bodies. So sometimes you have to take a stand. You have to draw a line. And it's different from being a nice guy. Being a good guy, and you want to be kind to people because you choose to be. That's real strength.
I mean, look at this article that like promotes this documentary that Terrell Anderson took part in as a member of the NYPD. Should black communities police themselves? New documentary shows violence interrupters being called instead of cops. A new documentary titled Policing Our Own sheds light on a group of Brownsville residents who intervene in tense situations, a program conceived by an NYPD officer. Let's just flip the script. Let's just say this wasn't Terrell Anderson. Let's say it was John Macari. Let's say he was an inspector of the 62nd precinct, predominantly Italian area in southern Brooklyn. Or let's put this out. Like I was in the 123. I was in the 123, right? Predominantly Italian area, predominantly white area. And I take part in a program where we want to police our own. And I believe that white cops should police white neighborhoods. And I believe that Italian cops should police Italian neighborhoods. And I say that because, you know, historically, even though the numbers don't prove it, I'll just play the same game they do. Historically, white people have been marginalized by black officers because they have a chip on their shoulder, because the systemic racism in America, because of the way they've been brought up and the things they've been told by their democratic masters, that they police our community harsher. And if we just allowed these Italian organizations, which we fund hundreds of millions of dollars to police instead of the cops, what would happen to me? I would make national headlines. I would be terminated from the police department without due process immediately. I would be labeled a white nationalist, white supremacist. I would be removed from everything. I wouldn't be okay with the world. The police commissioner wouldn't be okay with me. The mayor wouldn't be okay with me. The Republicans, those cowardly, fat-bodied, bitch-tit Republican men that also have self-castrated themselves, that bow down to these progressives, that, you know, not the, because we do have some conservative Republicans. I'm talking about the Republican Democrats. You know who they are. There's a lot of them in New York. I don't need to go through the list of them, but there's a lot of them. They all look the same too. They all have the same character traits. They all appear the same, much like NYPD chiefs. They are the same body. They're Republican Democrats. They would be calling for my head. They would be calling for me to be in jail for my language, for my use of freedom of speech. You know, and so like the same thing isn't true. You know, I'm laughing today because I got sent Pat Gordon saying he was posting today about the promotion of Terrell Anderson, obviously in opposition to this podcast. Another bitch tit, fucking spineless male, in my opinion, who's perfectly okay using racist terms and absolutely nothing happens to him because, again, we have a bunch of castrated fake Italians. We got some fucking tall Cuban running around pretending he's Italian with a ponytail who's literally deep-throating all this bullshit now, all this DEI Marxist bullshit. Formerly was on this podcast, no longer. He's gone. He's gone to go be the water boy that he is. And so, like, he's coming out as a result of it. And that's a guy, if you remember, he's like, you know, we got all these O's getting promoted. You know, all these O's. Could you imagine if I said we got all these Jamals getting promoted? Why is everyone that getting promoted Jamal? Why are they all black? We got all these O's. Who's he talking about? He was talking about the Italians, right? I made us think about that. You didn't see one Italian group come push back at that. None of them. None of them. You had a couple of guys trying to grift off of it. You had the fake Italian Civil Rights League. They tried to grift off of it. You had another phony tall Cuban with a ponytail. He tried to gift off of it. I pointed it out. And then you had the Organization for Italians inside of the New York City Police Department rush out and accept an apology that they never fucking asked for. Totally racist statement. There is a two-tiered system here. And the reason that all chiefs, I don't care if they're white or black, in my opinion, deep throat this, is because they go along with the world, and that is the way the world is today. If it was reversed and the world was different and they would demonize this as black supremacy and this is racism and they were okay with white people doing racism, then the white chiefs and the black chiefs would all deep throat this, in my opinion. Because, like I said, they're empty vessels. They have no opinions of their own. They all have the same character traits. They have zero integrity, zero spines, and they will do and say anything to move ahead. And that's it. So I don't. Every time I see the promotion list and I see executives getting promoted, I'm never like, oh yeah, that guy deserves it. I'm like, another cuck. There you go. Good. I hope you could take it with you. You know, someone said, oh, Shell's in his pool today, collecting his $30,000 a month. Okay, good. I hope he takes it with him. Hope he takes it with him. Hope he could take it with him, because there's a lot of answering to do. And like I said, you know, I was demonized in 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025, even in 2026. Now that all the shit's coming to light, right? Truth comes out. Now I'm getting all apologies. You save your apologies. I don't care. The truth doesn't have to defend itself. It comes out eventually, and it'll always come out eventually. And you know what? You got to live with what you did. You're going to have to sleep with it. You're going to have to answer to God for what you did. That's it. That's all I got to say. This is the complete emasculation of the New York City Police Department. Yeah. Was there a promotion? Was this in a way a hush promotion? Yeah, maybe. I just say that he's aligned with the political structure. The grift goes on. The corruption in hiring stays the same. Your NYPD continues to be a worse version of itself than it was in 2012. You continue to lose good, experienced, moral cops. You continue to promote weak, inept, incompetent, low integrity individuals that are going to run this organization that have no clue what they're doing. And even if they did, they have no balls enough to implement it anyway. So that's just my opinion. I don't know. I got really not much to say about it. You know, I hope you take it with you, Terrell. That's it. I hope you take it with you.
Yeah, that may be the case, John, but Terrell is going to get a pretty cushy six-figure job when he retires, especially now that he's a chief. He's going to get a pretty good six-figure salary on Wall Street, and he may even get he may become a commissioner somewhere or a chief somewhere of some other shithole progressive city that none of us would ever want to live in or visit right now.
This life is temporary, my friend.
That's all that really matters.
This life is very temporary, and this life is very temporary. That's what they don't see. And there's a lot of ways to make money in this country. So that's all I got to say.
Yeah.
You can still make a lot of money in America.
Yeah. And their kids are going to be okay too. Even though the whole community is going to be burnt down, right? Their house is going to be great. Okay. And they're going to be fine. Their kid, even though he believes the progressive bullshit, his kids will get to go to private school or go to a pretty good school, well-funded school. Okay. So who cares? Right. And so those of you just joining us here, you know, we're talking about Terrell Anderson, who just got a promotion. But to quickly catch up to speed, we put out a rewind last night about when the Academy incident first dropped. So if you want to catch up to speed with it, afterwards, go take a look at this video or send it to that low information buddy that you work with, you know, spread it and help them get up to speed on all this stuff.
You know, what we're describing here is pretty much like Darwin's theory. What we're saying is happening is survival of the fittest. Like, you know what, like we said, for instance, you said, Marlon, you know, if Terrell, like, my kids are fine, they go to private school, let the whole community burn down, but my house is good. So this comes down to, if we're saying that, this would come down to survival of the fittest, Darwin's theory. And I think it's beyond that. To say I need to do what I have to do to survive, because this is beyond survival. Because you know, one thing I learned in retirement, and the NYPD does a great job, I have to say this, even though I had a lot of exposure in my life, I had a lot of jobs, experience in the Marine Corps before the NYPD. The NYPD does do a great job of making you feel like you hit the touchdown. Like, you got an amazing job. I mean, the benefits are just outstanding. You're going to get a pension. You're going to get a variable supplement. You really feel like you hit the touchdown. You hit gold. And the reality is, it's a great job. Well, it was a great job, and it has all those amenities. But one thing I learned about retirement is there are so many options out there, and there's so many ways to make money, especially the skills that you garner as a law enforcement officer and the military really create pathways for entrepreneurship. And there's so many ways to make money. And in the NYPD, they in the small world that it is, they make you feel like it's the center of the world, and that you need. And I believe that a lot of those chiefs feel they have to keep those connections, right? For instance, why Rodney Harrison is never going to stand up and say, "Hey, Daniel Pantaleo was completely wronged, and my experience, I wish I would have went back and stood up for him when I could." He's never going to say that. In the reality, I think he's kind of given subliminal messages to that, but I don't think he'll ever outright just come out and say it. He has to live with Daniel Pantaleo being terminated. He has to live and find some peace with that. And that's something that he's going to have to wrestle with himself and God. I'm glad I don't have to have those struggles. But I see Terrell Anderson. I came out in the police academy with him. I don't know him too well, but of what I did know of him, he was a nice guy. I know he went on to be a good cop. But when I look at him, I forget it's Terrell Anderson. I see the face of every other. I see Terrence Monahan. You could take his head off right now and replace it, superimpose it with Terrence Monahan, John Schell, Jeffrey Madry. You're getting the same story, the same pandering. They're all telling you the same thing. They're basically telling you, to me right now, you can replace that with Rodney Harrison. What he's telling you is, I support defund the police. I support whatever it takes so that I can be the police commissioner for Zohran Mamdani. And what he said here to me almost feels like it was an interview stage, that he was interviewing so that the politicians hear him. Because there's no way that deep down he believes that bullshit that he spewed out, how the community should police themselves. I grew up in the hood, brother. You know damn well the community shouldn't police themselves. They need the police out there doing intrusive police work. You know damn well. I don't know if Terrell Anderson grew up in the hood or not. I don't care if he's black, and I don't care if he actually lived in the hood. But there's a difference between living in the hood and actually growing up in the hood. And people know exactly what I'm talking about, because I lived in the hood, I worked in rough neighborhoods, and I knew plenty of black kids who never left their house, and they were gamers all day because they just couldn't leave the house. So yeah, they lived in the hood. Did they really? But were they part of the hood? For him to regurgitate the information means he doesn't give a shit about the community. So Mike Marino, my brother, he makes a great comment. I'm trying to find it again. But basically what he said is, does anybody really give a shit about the community? Do they care about a 12-year-old boy that was actually shot? No, because if they actually cared, they wouldn't be given this information and make a self-serving pathway for them. And I often tell you this, I've been saying it since we started this podcast in this network almost 4 years ago. The reason why no one stands up against any of these atrocities is because they're self-serving needs, and they also pave the way and pave the pathway for their offspring. And that's what, if I had to put my money on it, many of those disqualified candidates probably are offspring. Maybe not exactly someone's son, but there's a connection. I would bet there's someone's grandson, someone's nephew. I'm sure plenty of them have relations to upper management in the police department. So if Terrell Anderson got those phone calls, oh yeah, you need to put this guy in, and he said, okay, and shame on you. And you know what? People have told me, oh, what is he supposed to do? He was told to do it. Oh, okay. So then if that's the question, then John's right. If you got the phone call, hey, bring your wife in tomorrow. She needs to be in at 10 o'clock for the gangbang at Jeffrey Madry's office. Oh, you have to do it. You're going to bring her in? 10 o'clock, make sure your wife is in. That's what you tell me. Full of shit. Get these guys a ball gag. Every one of them. Terrell Anderson, I don't care what he thinks of me. I know he's probably pissed off because we went to the police academy. I liked him. He liked me. He probably doesn't like me anymore. I don't give a shit, because this is about the bigger picture. And if you don't like me, that's fine, because let's be honest, Terrell Anderson, there's no way you lay down at night, look up at the ceiling and say, yeah, I actually believe that the community should police themselves. Bullshit.
Yeah, no, I absolutely believe that no white people should police black neighborhoods. That's what it ultimately is at the end of the day. Like, let's really face it. It's not the police, it's white people. And again, what are those racial demographics of the violence intervention groups? What are they? Do they meet New York City's racial equity goal? Are white people anywhere in that New York City's racial equity goal? They're not. It's a racist city. That is it. It's a racist New York City department. It's a racist mayor's office. It's been a racist mayor office. Even when we had this big doofy German in there by his surname, Bill de Blasio, what his real name is Warren Wilhelm, right? Even when we had him on there. You know, so it was racist. It was systemically racist against whites and males and Christians. And today it's even worse. You know, I got nothing else on Terrell Anderson. Like I said, I hope you take it with you. Mo, got anything before we switch topics?
No, but I think this relates to the next topic. I I don't know if it's the immediate next one or we're going to talk about later on, but there's something we didn't talk about here is that how much, you know, a while ago, Eric mentioned about managing the cops and being a good leader. And I'm going to say that does any of that really matter in the NYPD, right? Because it's all a matter it's all a matter of taking orders from one PP. It's like you know, paint by numbers command. Okay, you could be the moron. You could be a moron and be a commanding officer now, especially of a precinct, because you're getting all your orders from the borough, from the one PP, and it's all paint by numbers. You're doing the same thing the last guy did, and the last guy did, and the real innovation probably wasn't like was probably 20 years ago, or more. I mean, it's all, and I'm saying this because, Anderson was in the 7-7 for a short time as I think a lieutenant. I mean, I didn't have much interaction with him, but there wasn't anything that I saw was like, oh, this guy's going to make a super boss one day, but there were some sergeants who are now, one in particular is a chief. And as a sergeant, I thought, man, this guy's good. He's personable. You can talk to him and guys listen to him when he talks. And there's also been other people who were sergeants in the 7-7, and I found out recently that they were a boss. Maybe 2 years ago, I found out they were like a CO themselves. I'm wondering, how the hell is this person a CO? How the hell is this moron a CO? Okay, because they were a moron as a sergeant. Okay, and everybody knew it. Okay, so the point I'm making here is that nowadays the COs of precincts, it's just follow the orders, follow whatever dictates come down from one PP, and do everything the last guy did. How much room do they have to actually be a leader and do something innovative and do something different? It's all paint by numbers, and this is how you get people who are unqualified to be there, people who will just go along to get along, and people who are just utter morons. Okay, so
I just want to add this one thing before we get to the next topic, John. And it's very simple. It's this. So it's approximately 1 year ago that we had this major controversy about disqualified candidates becoming police officers and are actually active police officers doing law enforcement work, including arrest. In that short year, what did Terrell Anderson do that cultivated into a promotion? That's ultimately a simple question. In 1 year, or maybe it's a little bit less, since that controversy, and we haven't heard a resolve of what is going forward to prevent those type of things happening. What did he do so significant in this 1 year that got him that promotion? I just want our active, friends and listeners, or anyone who listens to this conversation, just think about this. It's not an attack on Terrell. As I said, I found Terrell to be a good cop. He was pretty congenial. I liked him. But we have to be honest and make those honest observations and conversations. What did he ultimately do in a year's time to earn the rank of deputy chief? Ultimately, when I often refer to, I say, oh, the job is those super chiefs that have the say on the job and they hold the keys to the job. So what did he do to have the rights to hold the key to the job?
Yeah, I don't know. And like, while we're on the topic of leadership, let's get into it. They all, like I said, they all deep throat DEI. Which is a Marxist ideology, which is a racist, illegal, divisive ideology, according to the laws of this country, according to equal opportunity law, according to the United States Constitution. It's positive discrimination against the majority. It has nothing to do with equity. Equity is not the goal. The goal of diversity, equity, inclusion is to have less whites and less men in professions, especially in masculine professions, and it seeks to emasculate those masculine professions and put a feminine stance. The version of the NYPD today you see is a feminine one, due in large part to the edicts of this individual, Dr. Anthony Fauci, who Dr. Fauci went on, he went on in front of Congress, in front of a congressional hearing, and he pleaded the fifth. He went from I am the science to I plead the fifth. The science is pleading the fifth now. So not a leader. I mean, everything that he was telling us was a blatant lie. My cousin said it great on one of my posts. He said, shout out to my cousin Nick, by the way, because I said, I've been labeled a science denier for a long time. He said, well, to be fair, you're a Catholic, you are a science denier. And I was like, that's a great point. I am a science denier. That's a great point. And I believe in ghosts, right? Like, so, and I believe in ghosts and spirits and demons, So I was like, great point. I shouldn't have took so much offense to it back then because they were actually right. I should have leaned in with that. But, absolutely demonized, removed from my church community, removed from many of my friends and many of my family, thrown out of my career. Marlon the same, because I said everything that this guy's saying is an absolute lie, and I know all of it to be a lie because I'm watching it. Because the biggest control group, I run 800 people in the largest control group that we have in this country. It's called the NYPD, and I'm watching everyone that takes this thing that the NYPD told me not to take. NYPD doctors told me not to take. I'm watching them all get sick. They told me not to take it because my antibody levels was so high, and they said that provided me greater protection than the vaccine would. But this guy went against years of medical history. This is the same guy that told you that if one of your family members had AIDS and you were in close contact with them, you were going to get AIDS too. I've had numerous of my family members die during the AIDS epidemic, and I remember as a child, and I still look back today, and I like the cowardice of myself, like being afraid to be around my cousins who had AIDS because I believed what he was telling us. I believed that I could just get it by being in the same room because that was what was being pushed on that TV screen. So there was quality time that I missed with my cousins before they died as a result of this man and his lies. I didn't know. I was a younger kid at that time. But then during this time, literally upended our entire government. And now he's pleading the fifth. And we haven't, and everyone wants his head. And I'm like, no, I want all their heads. I want everyone that pushed it. I want every commanding officer, every police commissioner, every fire commissioner, whoever was in charge of EMS, whoever was in charge of the teachers, all the unions, the firefighters, the nurses. I think the nurses were unbelievable. The nurses were actually in the hospital fighting a whole pandemic for 2 years. No protection, no protective gear, no vaccine was available. They went out there. They were all infected. We were all, at that point, first responders were all technically vaccinated. And then they mandated it to protect the profits of big business. That's what they did. They shut down our entire government. They sent my kids, lost 3 years in school, 3 years of vital years in school. Their communions were, I couldn't have parties because I couldn't get a hall. Winded up having a party in my home because I couldn't rent the hall because we were limited to 50 people or 80 people or whatever nonsensical rule they had. We've all experienced it. You show up at the restaurant. Oh, you got to wear your mask. The table's right there. I'm like, I got to wear my mask to go sit at the outdoor table that's right there, and then I could take it off. Yeah. I'm like, all right, yeah. And then I would sit there. And then it came to, no, I'm sorry, you can't even come in this restaurant without showing me your private medical information. Literally, everyone that talks about Nazi Germany and said, oh, we'll never forget, that's exactly how it started. It put a disgust factor in people against me, my children, and millions like me. So here's just a little clip from that, but I'm curious what you guys think about all that stuff. But I always love this. This is my favorite clip of Anthony Fauci, the expert, talking to a member of our community.
The people in America are not settled with the information that's been given to us right now. So I'm not going to be lining up taking a shot on a vaccination for something that wasn't clear in the first place. And then you all create a shot in miraculous time. It takes years to create vaccination.
Well, it used to take years.
Okay, it used to.
You know how many years were invested in this approach? About 20 years of science to get us to be able to do it.
20 years is not enough. And 9 months is definitely not enough for nobody to be taking no vaccination that you all came up with.
The only reason I'm talking to you right now, as close as we are, is that I've been vaccinated.
Right.
But if it allows thousands of people like you don't get vaccinated, you're going to let this virus continue to percolate in this country and in this world.
Something like the common flu then, right?
And not
it's
like
much more serious than the flu.
Well, the flu kills a lot of people annually too.
You know how many people died of the flu the last year? I mean, not this year, virtually none, but the previous year, about 20 to 30,000. You know how many people have died from COVID-19 in the United States? 600,000 Americans.
Well, the number that you all giving that died, that's once again, that's you all's number.
You gonna pass?
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
Because when you start talking about paying people to get vaccinated, when you start talking about incentivizing things to get people vaccinated, it's something else going on with that. Something else going on.
It is something going on.
There's
With
something
it.
else.
You're
going
right,
on
but
with
I'm glad millions of people like me and most everybody here didn't get an incentive. You know what their incentive was? Protecting their health and protecting the city.
Well,
but I won't keep doing anymore.
It's okay because y'all campaign is about fear. It's about inciting fear in people. You all attack people with fear. That's what this pandemic is. It's a fear. It's fear, this pandemic. That's all it is.
Killed it. Guy destroyed them, and they had nothing to say because everything was based on lies, and they all knew it.
I just want to say I love that guy, and I want to get him on the podcast. So if anybody could reach out and somehow get in touch with him, I would love to have him on and interview him because that was awesome. It really was. He's like, they're incentivizing it. Yeah, it made me think of de Blasio when he want to give out free burgers and fries, or the NYPD giving $500 for a shot. Yeah, he's like, when you have to incentivize it, there's something more going on. That guy's great, man. I love it.
Yeah. Shout out to that guy, because I'm telling you, that guy must have had to defend his position against so many people, so many people were trying to convince him to get the shot, but there's a lot of people involved in this, John. I don't know when it would, it'd be a lot of people if we start going after them. Yeah, a lot of people. This was, if you could recall, this was 42nd Street. I think it was a Burger King, and they called in I think these guys were SRG to kick the people out because they refused to wear masks. Okay,
I'm pretty sure this is Cheesecake Factory on 42nd.
Cheesecake Factory?
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I forget, but it was definitely at 42nd Street. But
yeah, and I think Fuzz was there. I think Mighty Fuzz Young was there.
Yes.
A lot of other people, and they were all arrested out of here as a result of this, right?
Yeah.
Shout out
for
to Mighty Fuzz
sitting down
man.
to eat without vaccine cards.
Yeah. So,
you know what's interesting to me? So, they're talking about Anthony Fauci right now. Going back to his Senate hearing where he pled the fifth. Now, the idea of pleading the fifth, I think, is an amazing amendment. A constitutional right. The Fifth Amendment was created so that if you're asked questions that could ultimately incriminate yourself, that you have a right to plead the fifth, right? So that you don't say something that it could incriminate you or have a response that could be manipulated. It wasn't designed for Anthony Fauci to not answer simple questions. I thought it was ridiculous. Like, they played the game and said, okay, can you tell us what color your shirt is? Can you tell us what this is? And he kept pleading the fifth. And I think that just shows there's a difference. We often talk about between man's law and morality. Like you were overseeing the entire country, supposedly saving lives. You're saying 600,000 people lost their lives to COVID. I lost my father to COVID. I had to watch him get buried from about a mile away with binoculars. It was the most ridiculous thing. So don't you owe it to the people, Anthony Fauci, to give transparency, to speak on it? You want to plead the fifth to not incriminate yourself, but you can't even answer simple questions about what color your shirt is? Yes, the Fifth Amendment was designed to not incriminate yourself, but how about some damn transparency for all the lives that are lost, everyone that has suffered, and you can't even speak on it? How selfish. That was absolutely diabolical watching that, and the fact that he couldn't even answer the simple questions. The Fifth Amendment was not designed for you not to answer any questions. You can answer a question of what color your shirt is, just to show you how selfish that man is. And some people say, oh, leave him alone, he's 85 years old. Who cares? Who cares how old he is? He lived a life of just a complete lie.
Well, the other thing is, like, even there where he says it, he's like, oh, COVID killed 600 people. No. 600,000 people. The COVID mandates killed hundreds of thousands of people. The way you couldn't get care. I had pneumonia for 7 fucking days. I almost died. I almost dropped dead on my couch. Went to the hospital. They're like, the only thing we'll do is put you on a ventilator because you have drug-seeking behavior. I'm like, I have pneumonia. I can't breathe. I feel like I'm breathing through a straw. All I want is a Z-Pack. And the only reason I knew that that worked is because 2 years earlier, my father was dying in hospice. So every day after working 12-hour shifts, I would drive all the way out to Jersey, spend time with my father, get home, sleep for about 2 hours, and go back to work. On the days I wasn't ordered to do some bullshit detail or whatever else, doing tons of overtime. So I ran myself into the ground. I gave myself pneumonia. And then I knew that once I got that Z-Pack, I was back. I was back. I was fine. And then so I get COVID. I get the COVID pneumonia as a result of that, as a result of sitting in, as a result of none of the doctor's offices were open. There were no outpatient facilities open. And then the doctor, and I'll never forget him till this day. I would love to run into him again today because I would love to see what a coward. He told me I have drug-seeking behavior, and he wouldn't give me a Z-Pack for pneumonia when they told me I didn't have pneumonia. Police department's calling me. It's like I'm out for 2 weeks. I'm like, I can't breathe. I can't carry the groceries. I can't walk up the stairs. They're like, yeah, but there's nothing wrong with you. I was like, no, I had pneumonia. I got a Z-Pack from, what's it called? From Teladoc. I called Teladoc. The doctor took mercy on me. She was like, you have to go to the hospital right now. I'm like, they're refusing to treat me. She gave me a Z-Pack. Within hours, I felt the strength come back into my body. And I was like, oh my God, I'm not going to die. Because I couldn't even get up from my couch that I was sleeping on for 2 weeks to go pee to the bathroom that was right next to where I was because I couldn't stop choking. I thought I was going to die. I thought I was going to drop dead in my house and my kids were going to witness it. My wife thought I was going to drop dead too. And it was a result of all of the protocols that he followed, Andrew Cuomo followed, Bill de Blasio followed. And so when I told the doc, I remember specifically talking to the district surgeon. I said, the hospital told me that I do not have pneumonia, but I'm telling you, 2 weeks ago, I was doing wind sprints in my backyard, getting ready to box for an upcoming event that was coming. And I was boxing 5-minute rounds. I was in the best shape of my life. And now I can't even carry the groceries into my house. I don't know what's wrong with me, but I had pneumonia and something's really not right. And what happens after? He goes, all right, take another week. What happens after that phone call? The hospital starts calling me. You know what the hospital tells me? Your lungs are really bad. You have to go to a specialist. You have to go get your heart checked. You have to do all this stuff. Your lungs are really, really bad. I was like, what are you talking about? They're like, the pneumonia that you have is really deep. I was like, what are you talking about? You sent me home and said I had no pneumonia. And that was what was happening. If I was not in that shape, I would be one of those 600,000 people that died during the time. And there was nothing wrong with me. It was unbelievable what they did. Now imagine the guy that had cancer. Imagine the guy that had health issues. Imagine the guy that needed to go to the outpatient facility. All those people died as a result of this guy's transactions. And I'm not even talking about, I'm talking about deaths. I'm talking about the murder of innocent Americans who believed in their government and believed in this medical system. It was our own government, Republicans and Democrats, that shut this country down and let that stuff happen. And then we want to go further and talk about how it upended people's lives, our hopes, our dreams, our plans, our careers, like myself and Marlon. I mean, it's irreparable harm has been caused to millions of Americans, no more so than people in New York City, especially public safety workers in New York City, civil service workers in New York City. We paid the ultimate price for it. The tyrants, the cowards, the liars, and those people pushing it were all rewarded. And you could look at it.
Yeah. That's true. And New York City, I don't care what you say, New York City still hasn't recovered from it. Okay. And, I talked about it on Wednesday. I'm not going to rehash that conversation, but the bottom line, what I was saying is that the city made a bet on the scamdemic and the outcomes of the scamdemic, and that failed. And now we're seeing those negative repercussions of the scamdemic. They wouldn't have mattered had the outcomes occurred as the city wanted to, but they didn't happen that way. And now we're dealing with the negative consequences of it. And that includes the budget, the people that have left, the the loss of experience and veteran leadership in the police department, the elevation of incompetence in the police department, and inexperience. So New York City, I think it may take decades for New York City to really recover from this. And still, New York City is silent, even as we're seeing a lot of people apologize for their error during that time frame. We're seeing a lot of other places around the country are admitting they were wrong. And look, Stephen A. Smith, remember how vocal he was about Kyrie Irving? Now even he is saying that he was wrong about it. But yet we're seeing the people in New York City and the stakeholders, right? The unions, the politicians, the everyone in that sphere is still being silent on it, even though it's all in our face how government was wrong and there should be consequences for it, and yet everyone is silent.
I don't know if we ever come back. So I think there's certain points in history that changes society, and you move forward in a different direction. So I don't know if we could ever come back. And one of those points, 9/11. I think 9/11 changed the entire world, and I don't think we'll ever come back from it. We move forward in a different direction. And I think COVID was the other significant point in history where it changed the world. If anyone asked me right now, could you tell me like key points in history that have changed the world? There are other times in history, but at least in my lifetime, I would say it's 9/11 and COVID. After 9/11, the entire world changed on a global scale. And from 2020 on, I would say the entire world has changed, but at least the democratic socialists of this country have changed the landscape of this country from COVID. I mean, New York was completely a different place. It's almost unrecognizable sometimes. As I said, I went there recently, and it was unrecognizable as far as the feel, just the vibe in New York City just feels different. And I think that's it's from COVID. So could we ever go back? I don't know. We could surely move forward. And what we learned from COVID, there's a lot of negative things that came out of COVID, but there's a lot, which is why I often say opposition meets opportunity. I think there's a blessing also. We learned a lot from COVID. We learned how compliant people can be. We learned, and I think people going forward, which they should, trust their government less and are more self-reliant. And there are some people that took a completely different stance where they're completely reliant. They believe everything that was fed to them about COVID. They believe that they did the right thing by wearing a mask. They still wear a mask. I mean, at this point in 2026, drive around any metropolitan area, you will find people wearing a mask. You'll find people driving a car by themselves wearing a mask, and you might ask yourself, wow. And unfortunately, it comes down to identity politics. So we learned a lot of identity politics came out of this. This is COVID itself was far beyond the medicine of it. It was far beyond the disease and the illness of what could transpire. It went into politics. And politics, COVID, really, if you had to think about COVID right now, does the first word pop in your head about medicine or politics? And for me, it would be politics.
And for me, I always stay centered on the police department because I'm not gonna lie, dude. That was one of the most traumatic experiences I ever faced. Other than losing my two parents, other than health scares with my children, this was a prolonged, months-long traumatic experience. Watching myself and others of faith be completely demonized for absolutely nothing. You have to understand where I was in the New York City Police Department. Everyone and their mother loved me, called me for every single thing. And because I said I'm not taking this, overnight, and by the way, thousands and thousands of other people said the same thing. But when it got down to the wire, the fear campaign, like that guy in Washington, D.C. was saying, the fear campaign really ramped up. And it was very traumatic to deal with, And so me personally, I sat up for I think it was 4 or 5 days, and I was in bed. I couldn't even sleep. And I was working crazy hours during that time. Again, I didn't stay home like everybody else got that opportunity to. We were working. We were New York City cops. We had no choice. We worked throughout the entire pandemic. The pandemic was over. City was opening back up. Medical institutions were going back to normal. Offices were going back to work. And then this mandate comes in, and I sat up knowing it was coming before it was coming, because Eric was there. Eric was at an LBA meeting where, Turco even said there's a mandate coming and I'm not doing anything about it. So I knew that the mandate was coming, and I already had spoken with enough people in legal and everywhere else, because again, everyone loved me and they were blatantly honest with me, and they thought that like I was on their team. They thought I wouldn't have the balls to stand up. No, I would just be a good boy, and I would be that empty vessel and rise to the rank of chief, and they could use me, and I would say how great violence interventions are and all that stuff. And I was like, they were literally telling me, yeah, no Catholic is getting a religious accommodation. So if you put in for a religious accommodation, you're getting fired. I'm just letting you know. Like, we're not playing. We're doing this. You guys should have already all been fired already. And so, well, tier 1, tier 2, a lot of people didn't even put in religious accommodations, or if they did, they never even got decided on. Again, I was the first person in the NYPD who was denied a religious accommodation and denied an appeal, and it was all within a 48-hour window. Absolutely disgusting. And so I sat up and I tried to convince myself to take the shot, because I had done everything right in my career. I was working on a huge, ginormous pension without being a phony, without pretending I have a shoulder injury, without pretending I have an ankle injury, without sucking Eric Adams' balls, without doing any of these things. Like, I was going to have a huge pension. I had always put into the ITHP, the 50%. I always saved all my money. I was working towards all those times. I always did overtime. I was working towards that. And I had not even begun really to move in my career, because I was trying to get in the executive rank and become a commanding officer and put the practices in place that I believe would work. And so I did everything to convince myself to take it. And ultimately, I tell everybody, I fought with God for about 5 days, and I ultimately came to the decision, I can't do this. It would be the ultimate sin for me to deny what I know to be true. And worse than even me doing it to myself, I would now have to also force this mandate on other people too. People that I know that don't want to do it, people that are coming into my office seeking advice, minority women, single mothers, live in the projects, first-time job, because again, I was in charge of all the cleaners that we just hired, right? And they're like crying to me, Lou, I don't want to put this in my body. I don't know how I'm going to feed my kids. This is the first time I have healthcare. I want to get my kids out of the projects. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you to do. I don't know what to tell you to do. I'm not ever going to tell you to take it. You have to make the decision for yourself. And so, like, I still deal with that trauma today. And so when I go back, I understand that the teachers were harmed. I understand that FD was harmed. I understand the MS. I understand the nurses. But I always look at it from what the NYPD did. And that's why I have no respect. And I call them politically appointed managers, because he is a guy who comes from a legacy of a police family, a really NYPD royalty. I think a guy who is very intelligent, not as intelligent as he thinks, but a guy that I looked up to, a guy that I thought, I wanted to emulate until he became the police commissioner. And I was like, oh my God, I wouldn't trade places with this guy for all the money in the world. I would never do what this guy's doing. And now, I don't just hold Dermot Shea accountable. I hold everyone during that time that knew it was a lie and said, yeah, we want to fire all you guys. You and your family are murdering people, and you guys don't deserve hospital beds, and you guys don't deserve careers in the NYPD, and you guys aren't patriots. We're the real patriots. Here was the law enforcement, the honorable police commissioner, the patriot with the American flags behind him. And all I see is a tyrant cuck who will do absolutely anything. And that's how I look at all of yous, including you, Terrell. That's how I look at yous. I look at yous like this. This is from that time. Listen to this.
Get it right to you. As we all know, the Department of Health has put forward regulations regarding the COVID vaccines. We're at the end of the wire here. It is now Wednesday morning. By Friday, you're supposed to be vaccinated. Again, what does it mean if you haven't been vaccinated? Well, what it means is starting on Monday, you will be put in a no-pay status. I know there's a lot of questions about this. I wish I had all the answers. I don't at this point in time. Some of this is still being worked out with City Hall and collective bargaining and unions and things of that nature. But that point I just said is the critical point that I wanted to get to you today. You have to be vaccinated by Friday. In fact, they're still doing this $500 if you get vaccinated between October 20th and October 29th, and that's Friday's date. So what if you haven't been vaccinated by Friday? Come to work Saturday, Sunday, if you are scheduled to work. Again, if you're looking to get that $500 and you go Saturday, you're probably not going to get it because of this 20th to the 29th date range. On Monday, when this thing really starts being enforced, we're going to check the vaccination status. And if you're not vaccinated, no pay, and you're going to be not able to work. I don't think anyone wants that to happen. I'm sure you don't want it to happen. I certainly don't. We need you out there. Please take advantage of the next couple days and get vaccinated. We have medical working on additional sites. You can do it at home on your own if you want. The vaccinations are available literally everywhere at this point in time, but you got to do it now to be able to help me and to help the city and to keep you and your partners and your family safe from this. All right, that's the main message. Couple more things. What about reasonable accommodations? Today is extremely important. We are getting people with requests for reasonable accommodations, whether it's for religious purposes, maybe some medical issue. Those are going, they're all detailed on this memo that went out, and it was emailed to everybody, and it's posted all over the department. Check your admin bulletins in the email section of your phone if you have the phone, or check online if you come to work, because all the information is in there. But here's what you really need to know. Today, if you have not sent in a reasonable accommodation request to OEO, if they have not gotten it by today, if you send it in tomorrow and you don't get the vaccine, it's going to be reviewed, but you're going to go into no pay starting on Monday. You're not getting paid. No one wants that. If you have delivered to OEO and they have received it any day before today or up to today, then the period of time while they're reviewing it, you are going to get paid, and then you can just comply with the testing piece. That is really important for that small.
But he already knew that they weren't going to approve any religious accommodations, a very small number. And what he says there is he goes, oh, for those small amount of people that are requesting a religious accommodation, just so we're aware, it was 16,000 people at this point. It was 16,000 people, and he's blatantly lying and telling you, no one's really submitting for this reasonable accommodation. Again, reasonable accommodation. If you requested for Leviticus 19:27 that says thou shalt not cut the sides of their head or their beard, nor shall they tattoo their body. If you submitted that, your approval rate is 100%, where you could have a religious accommodation to not shave, even though you're showing up with what everyone calls the Johnny Mac sleeve. You're showing up with a trimmed beard and a shape up. Doesn't matter that you violate every edict of that. If you went on to Matthew 9:27, those are who's sick or in need of a doctor, and those who are not, do not. And you went on that, or you said, I'm against abortion. There's aborted fetal cells in there, which there were, which people said was a lie, which there absolutely were in all of them. If you put any of those reasonable accommodations out there and you said that, you had a 6% approval rate of 6%. Only during this time, only for COVID. And, it absolutely ridiculous. All of a sudden, they were saying that if you ever took Advil once in your life, if you ever took any type of Tylenol, you could never deny ever taking a vaccine ever again, or any other type of medicine. You have to take every piece of medicine. If you ever took one vaccine for a different disease, you can't deny another thing. So it was all arbitrary. It was not even, I don't even want to say it was arbitrary. It was already deemed that you as a Catholic were not going to get a religious accommodation. And if you look at the numbers, yes, Marlon was terminated, but if you look at the numbers of religious accommodations, and yes, there were some Muslims and there were some Jews that were denied. Overwhelmingly, white male Catholics were overwhelmingly denied. Not even, the numbers aren't even close. And it was done to further the DEI 30 for 30 agenda. And now you see the results of that. You see what happened. And it was all a result of this fucking coward right here.
Yeah, well, it's a fact. We talked about this before. They don't like Christianity. Okay, they hate Christians because A lot of the other religions are more authoritarian, and they lead themselves to the state being, you know, to the state having power over you. Okay, so they don't like Christianity. Okay, but I'm gonna say this don't matter. You know, all that matters is Dermot is getting paid now, because Dermot works being the president of a related commercial management company. His security gig, he's doing well for himself. Okay, last I heard it was close to $1 million Dermot's making over there. So who cares about you guys? You know, who cares about you guys who are now dealing with myocarditis or advanced cancers? Who cares? Okay, Dermot's doing pretty well, and his kids will do well. Okay, so that's all that really matters, right? Man, you know, when that guy became PC, I thought, you know, he was gonna be good. You know, his brother was pretty cool. I had HIDA training in the Bronx. I think it was the HIDA training that I had, and his brother was there.
His brother was awesome, dude.
Yeah. I was like,
He was
man, this
telling
guy,
Marie, simplify to his brother.
Yeah.
Not him, that piece of shit, his brother.
Yeah. What the hell happened? You know, it's like, I mean, how could this guy be such a piece of shit and his brother be so good? You know, like his brother told his brother stood up for the law and what's right when Kelly wanted him to
Yep.
take stuff and put himself on the line.
That's why he had to leave for Jersey.
Yeah. And this POS is gonna guzzle every bullshit that came down from City Hall and force you guys to now live with the consequences while he's off reaping, you know, all that money.
Well, this goes back to what I'm going to say, and I'm going to constantly regurgitate this until it just gets ingrained in the brain. Here's another nice guy. I was told that Dermot Shea was a cop's cop, but sure, when he rose up the ranks, he became a nice guy. And what is a nice guy? I told you earlier, doesn't challenge or have confrontation and doesn't say no. He didn't challenge. He could have challenged the politicians and say, wait a minute, Mike, think about this. The cops were given 7 days to make a decision, less time than the mandate. Then actually, the mandate was actually induced. So I think it was October 20th, 2021, that the health commissioner announced the vaccine mandate in New York City, and I think the mandate was actually 9 days after that. So the cops were given 7 days, and yet the mandate was 9 days, just to show you how much they shit on the cops. They were given 7 days. So Marlon, you had 7 days. John, you had 7 days to make a decision. Absolutely ridiculous. Less time than the mandate decision, which was 9 days. So Dermot Shea, I'll say it, piece of shit. Nice guy. Smiled at everybody, but he didn't challenge. He could have stood up and said, no way am I going to force my cops into this. If that means I need to retire, I'll retire. He could have retired with his face in dignity and sanctity, but he didn't. Instead, he went along because he's a nice guy. He didn't challenge it. Didn't set healthy boundaries. Set a boundary, say, wait a minute. My cops have been out here through this entire pandemic, fighting the good fight, and now they have to make a decision within 7 days. It takes people sometimes longer to make a decision on what car they're going to buy. It takes people longer to make a decision on what restaurant they're going to go to when they go out with family and friends. It takes people longer decision to decide what movie they're going to watch when they're going out on a date. And 7 days was the decision that people had to make to decide their careers and lives. Absolutely ridiculous. So piece of shit. And the other thing that piece of shit did that eradicated and caused a major problem for New York City and still today is he disbanded anti-crime June 15, 2020. One of the most best effective tools in intrusive policing and law enforcement. He's responsible for that. So that's the guy that was a cop's cop. Nice guy. Everyone's a nice guy. I'm sure people talk, Dermot Shea, what a nice guy. Yeah, he's doing well. He's making $1 million. That's what's important to him. Was Dermot Shea vaccinated, John? Did you ever get the card on that? I didn't see it. Ever see his vaccination card? Mom, was he vaccinated? I'm just curious.
I don't care if he was, because he's an absolute cock, but I'm curious about his kids. That's what I want to know. I want to know, did you push it on your kids? That's what I want to know. You know, and I guarantee nobody's going to like that answer. You know, and remember, the police commissioner that everybody loves, she wasn't vaccinated either, in my opinion. I don't think she took it. Meanwhile, she fired Marlon, never wanted us back. You know, so I think she's another one.
Wait,
That phone.
hold on about it. You talk about the best police commissioner ever. You can't.
Yeah, that lasted 4 months, ran out the door, and's in hiding now. No one's seen
Everybody,
her.
you can't talk about that.
She's
Listen,
got another big job too.
Yeah, I think she had great dignity, good poise, very professional image. But we never got to see if she would be a good police commissioner or not. But the bottom line is, she did sign off on your removal. She did sign off, even though he's no longer with the podcast. She signed off on Sal Greco's termination. She signed off on all this stuff. So the bottom line is, was she the police commissioner or not? She was, even though so everyone says she's nice also. Yeah, she's nice, but she didn't challenge the system either. Why? Because she went on to get herself a good job too. That's why. That's why people don't challenge the system, because it's always about me. The difference is we challenge the system. You know, I challenged the CCRB, and I'm no longer, I had to make a decision to retire. If I would have kept challenging the CCRB, I probably would have been in jail. Marlon, you challenge the system, you're terminated. John, you challenge the system, and you had to vest out. The bottom line is, you speak the truth, and you act, and you're not part of that nice guy syndrome. You're out.
Well,
be a nice guy.
We don't know the status of his kids, if they got it or not, but he could have very well been like Rodney and forced his kid to get it, you know. So I'm just gonna put that out there.
We know his kid got an 18-month detective track with 18 months on the job. Oh, he must have been amazing. His son must be, wow. He must have cured cancer too.
Yeah, and don't forget the squad in the Bronx. That was so. Wasn't there a rumor of a squad in the Bronx that?
No, there wasn't a rumor. That was legit. Like the Bronx squads, they were telling me it was bullshit. The mandate was bullshit. Nobody ever had to get vaccinated because none of them did. None of them had to submit religious accommodations, and none of them did anything. The whole thing was a joke, dude. The whole thing was a joke. And again, all the people around Eric Adams, they were unvaccinated too. Nobody said a fucking word about it. What about the violence interrupters? They're paid by city funds, unvaccinated. You know, what about all these people? It's like, you know, all the good people, all of our new neighbors, the ones that we brought in from overseas that don't work here and just drain our system, those people, they were all unvaccinated, but they were fine. Their kids were fine to go to school while they were trying to separate my fucking kids. You know, the whole thing was a joke. And they gave us, you know, the other thing that really, they gave us 7 days, not even 7 business days, not even 7 business days to make a decision. It was 7 fucking days. You know, I had to buy a house over the fucking internet. Like, I had to change my fucking career trajectory and everything over the internet because I wouldn't kneel down before them masters. That's what it was. Like, you know, Terry Monahan took a knee physically, but all of these guys took a knee figuratively. This was the biggest knee that I've ever seen, you know? And honestly, dude, like the whole anti-crime thing, they should have fucking disbanded anti-crime in 2013. You know what I mean? They should have said, this guy doesn't want you guys to do police work. Give him what he wants. Respond to the fucking crimes. We're putting everybody in uniform. That's what I would have did. That's what I would have did. I would have been like, you don't want proactive police work? Okay, no, I'm not sending my guys out there to get eaten alive. No problem. Yeah, you guys are all in sectors. Don't worry about it. I'll still give you overtime. Don't fucking worry about it. You can keep your days off. You keep your tours and your days off. We're not doing this shit no more. Let's see how it happens for the city. And I'm not lying about the crime numbers either. You know, they should have fucking disbanded. They should have disbanded it way earlier. They just needed a cook like him to do it. The other guys were just sending you guys out there to get eaten alive. You know?
You know, honestly, if it was up to me, I don't even think jail time is enough for these guys. I think Dermot Shea, in my opinion, should be locked in a room and they should play that video all day. He should have to watch himself regurgitate information that he didn't believe in. They should just watch. He should be sit in a chair and forced to watch himself talk about that all day. I think that's the best punishment for all these guys. Honestly, just have them watch videos of themselves. Terrence Monahan, they should put him in a room and he should watch himself taking a knee. And that video should just play all day so they can remind themselves of the lie that they lived. To me, that's the best punishment. Not put these guys in jail. I don't want to see them injured. I don't wish anyone, but they should be locked in a room and have to watch themselves, the people that they were, that they had a lie to pretend to be. That should be their punishment. Dermot Shea should be sit in a room and watch himself all day. That video should play over and over and just hear himself give out bullshit. How about the vaccine was so important? I want to know if he was vaccinated. I think that's really important. I want to know.
No, but I want to talk to him now. I want to talk to all these people now and see them back off. How about John Shell? you quit, you quit, you quit, you're a quitter, calling me and Marlon quitters. Okay, we quit. Okay. I guarantee if you talk to him now about the mandate, yeah, it was wrong. And that's everybody, dude. That's the Chris Cuomo's of the world, the Stephen A. Smith. Like, no, you dudes with tyrants. And since this administration came into effect, they all trying to distance themselves from it. Like, look at like this is on the PBD podcast. This is Cuomo now that he's a moderate. You know, everybody's a moderate all of a sudden. Like, no, you were a left-wing Nazi. Listen to him with Dave Smith trying to distance himself from it. Unbelievable.
There was so much talk that they don't want you to take ivermectin. Ivermectin is the way to go. Take it. Joe Rogan got better from ivermectin. And by the way, I don't like what people did to Joe Rogan about ivermectin. I don't like
You did it.
No. Okay,
yes, you did.
Find the clips.
Dude, find the clips. You shamed Joe Rogan.
Find the
you
clips.
said he's taking horse dewormer. You and Don Lemon were chuckling at each other about it.
No,
I'll go find
first
the
of all,
clip.
you just saw the clips.
I watched
I'm
it.
not chuckling. I'm listening to Don. But
No. The
here's
clip
point.
I'm talking about wasn't on there. And
Here's-
it's absolutely
look, we
there.
were
Here, do we have it? Hold on. Let's play the clip.
Injecting drugs for animals and horse.
And people telling them to. Oh my God. What person? You know, you talk about cancel culture and who to shame. Ivermectin, a dewormer, really?
They are shaming themselves.
That's what it is.
They're shaming themselves.
So you're taking a dewormer right now.
This
Chris, you can't apologize for that. You weren't being clear that it was this, and you know that, dude. You're being so dishonest right now, man.
I'm not being
You were
dishonest.
talking about ivermectin, the drug. You were not talking about this version of ivermectin. Come on.
I mean, and there's just so much of that. Like, you know, I go back to that. That was a great debate, actually. I mean, it really wasn't a debate because Chris Cuomo just got slaughtered, and you just see what a phony he is. But when you go back, you know, when Rogan had Sanjay Gupta on, just the blatant lies that were coming out, and he was trying to make, and then he said, "Oh, Rogan was intimidating me." It's like, come on, dude. Get out of here. Rogan was sitting there. He was wearing like a Cypress Hill t-shirt. There's mangling the CNN expert medical doctor on just logic, you know, and it's ridiculous, dude. Honestly, like it just still gets me so angry. All this stuff, and there hasn't been a reckoning for it. Mondani's now pushing reparations for slavery for blacks, and you got a guy like Marlon who's alive. Right? We have no slaves in this country. We have nobody that's alive that was a slave. We don't even have anyone that was the child of someone who's a slave. So nobody was themselves affected by slavery. But here you got a guy like Marlon who actually was marginalized, thrown out of his career, stripped of all his health care, his funding for absolutely no reason. We know that it was wrong. We know that it was an illegal discriminatory edict, and there's no reparations being discussed for him. We're talking about reparations from hundreds of years ago. Like, what are we talking about here? Where are the COVID reparations? Where is that happening? Yes, I want a full reinstatement. I want every fucking dollar that was owed to me, and Marlon too.
Well, John, I'm sure you know Marlon's not black anymore because Marlon's on the Finance Unfiltered. So Marlon's no longer entitled to reparations.
No, but anybody that refused the COVID vaccine is not black or Hispanic or not marginalized. They are written off to history. They're written off. It was perfectly those are perfectly acceptable losses because they don't align with the ideology.
You know, all kidding aside, I honestly, I wonder, I really do. And I say this, and I really mean it. I wonder, like looking back, how does Terrence Monahan feel about taking a knee during that time? How does Dermot Shea feel 6 years later, looking back at him forcing upon a vaccine, not fighting back? I'm curious. I do wonder. Yes, I know they're making millions and their lives are great financially, but I wonder, I really do. I wonder if it haunts them. And if there's any sense of compassion left in them. I mean, they did become cops at some point. They were known as cops. Like, if there is some piece left of a heart, it has to haunt them. There's no way. And if it doesn't, then they're psychos. They're psychopaths and they're sociopaths. Because if it doesn't haunt them, that's why I think they should play those videos over again. It must haunt them. It has to. And I'm sure they justify it because they're taking care of their families and their offspring. But I do think it haunts them. And I think, this life is short. Death is permanent. Life is temporary. And for the temporary short time they're here, they have to live with that. And I would put my money on it that they feel pain, that they burn in pain. I at least I hope they do. I have to be honest. I don't wish death on anybody, or anyone's injury, but I do wish that emotional pain on them that they have to think about.
Yeah, I do think it haunts them, and I think that's part of the reason why they hate us and they hate the show, is because we constantly remind them, and they would like nothing better than for society and for every cop to forget about what happened there, and that'll never happen as long as we exist, because we're always going to talk about it, and because we're talking about it, we're keeping it in the news cycle, and we're keeping. Eventually, it's going to hit the law information. In the case of the job, it's going to hit the law information cops, because their buddies or their buddies' buddies are watching it and sharing video of us talking about it. So they hate it, and they hate that if they go to any other retired guys, even if they're all in the same club, they're going to be talking about us, because they're going to be like, "Oh, you see what those finest guys said about you?" Right? And they hate it, but too damn bad. Okay. You're all going to have to live with that for the remainder of your lives on this earth. And we will never shut up about it. Okay. We want that to be reminded to you every day by every cop that you meet. They're going to remind you, hey, you see what they said about you? You see, they did. And even though the people that you meet may not be talking to you about the vax, they really are talking to you about the vax, because in the back of their head, that's what they're still thinking. Okay, so you're going to have to live with that, right? And what John just referenced, by the way, is Mamdani, alluding to reparations for Black New Yorkers, as according to his words, for New York's role in slavery. Okay, so like every other idiot progressive mayor of every other of their respective shithole cities in this country, he's joined the bandwagon for reparations for Black folks. And was it you, John, that said no, or Eric that just said I'm not Black anymore? And I said, the hell I am. I want my damn reparations too, Mom Donnie.
You're part of the Finest and Filtered. You're no longer Black, dude.
Yeah. Well, I better get my reparations, Zohan. Otherwise, you're racist. Okay.
It's a joke, dude. It's an absolute joke. This guy was like a huge lib, and I think a lot of people that like I've been talking to recently, like in these last few years, were like people I don't align with politically at all. But I mean, I think he nails it. I think we're in a worse off situation now, post-COVID, than we were pre-COVID, because so many people folded. And I think what they witnessed people like myself and Marlon and thousands of others just be completely destroyed, completely blackballed from society and out of the system. Like me and Marlon are blackballed from law enforcement as a result of a stance that was aligned with the United States Constitution, aligned with the laws, aligned with these departments' own policies, aligned with integrity. And we're blackballed as a result of that. And so what he says here, I think, is really important, because if when another mandate comes, you guys are all just folding. So I just got to tell you that, all the excuses will come in. Oh, I had the conversation with my doctor. Oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. Everybody will pretend they're afraid when they're not. What they're really afraid of is being the next John Macari or the next Marlon Bethel and falling out of the system. So, I think we're in a much worse position because of the lack of men that we have in society, because of the ballless unions, the ballless leaders in our agencies. And I think no more so than law enforcement. I think law enforcement managers, the politically appointed, are the actual result of every problem in society. They're feminized, cowardly, self-castrated men. And I think we're in a much worse scenario now. And anyone that doesn't believe me, watch when the next thing comes. We already know who all the cowards are. You're not standing up again. You didn't stand up the first time. You're not standing up now. As a matter of fact, you're gonna take a quicker stance to demonize whoever you're told to demonize. I thought this was interesting what he said, and I actually agree with what he says here.
We live in two worlds simultaneously at the moment. I remember conversations that I had with people I cared deeply about at the beginning of COVID, right? As the lab leak story was beginning to crack.
Mm-hmm.
And what I saw was actually I think we're going to win the lab leak story. We're not yet winning the vaccine story. And we're way behind on the repurposed drug story, but we know the dimensions of it. And my feeling is we're actually way ahead in this COVID trajectory. Our side is punching way above its weight class. We need to go for broke, and we need to get all of these things hashed out so the public gets them all, because we're never going to get a better chance to see how our system works. This story diagnoses the system. In 2026, here's what we see. We actually won completely. All of these things are now visible to anybody who wishes to see them. And we've lost completely. Our capacity to do anything about this is now on full display. We have none. That is an amazing position to be in, but it does tell you what we have to do next, because it means that your ability to simply get the story clear enough and enough evidence on the table does not have an impact on what happens next. We're still apparently dispensing these frickin' shots. How crazy is that, right? After all that we have unearthed, after all the people who lost their careers to unearth this stuff, they're still dispensing the frickin' shots. So, okay, we won completely. Anybody who wants to know can now know pretty much what happened. We still have some loose ends. We don't know exactly what the ultimate objective was, but if you want to know what happened during COVID, you can find out. There are a lot of us out here who know. And we've lost completely in terms of power. Knowing completely what happened or having a really good record of all these major victories and the evidence that, you know, was so hard won doesn't buy you anything in terms of the ability to actually change the trajectory of the ship. So I would argue that the right thing to do is, with the part that we did win, the evidence, right? It's out there, is that we need to figure out now how to talk to the people who actually have goodness in their hearts, but are still so desperately confused.
So I think he nails it. That was Brett Weinstein on, I believe it's the Dark Horse podcast. And that's where we are, right? Everything that myself and Marlon said, every single thing has now came out to be true. We were demonized, terminated, forced out of our communities about it, and because of our stance. And it's all true. We haven't received an apology. We haven't received a reinstatement. We haven't received back pay. We haven't received anything. And no one could sit here and argue with us on any of those points. Every single thing we said was true. It was illegal. It was immoral. It was wrong. It was all based on lies, and nothing has happened, and nothing will happen, in my opinion. And I think, you know, he goes on to give his opinion, and which I don't agree with. And I don't even think he says, like, you need to, like, get people more awake to do this. And I think we need absolute action inside of government. We need people taking back seats. We need to take back the Republican Party, because, again, they ran on this. It looks like they're going to run on this again, and they've done nothing to correct this injustice. DOJ civil rights currently under Hartmut Dillon has done absolutely nothing. As a matter of fact, she muted me, right? That's the head of your civil rights, DOJ. And I think it's absolutely ridiculous. You know, I think it's absolutely ridiculous. And so, yeah, we're talking reparations. Yeah, COVID reparations. That's what needs to happen.
Well, I think that what he's ultimately talking about, I think, is perspective. And so, for one, he's saying that there's a win here, and talks about, you know, the people are awakened, and then he says also we lost. And so, it ultimately, it's perspective. That's why I said so much negativity that came out of COVID. And I think it changed the world. You know, for instance, the historic landmine moments that have really changed the world. That, you know, could we come back from this? Is 9/11 and COVID, at least in my lifetime. And so there's a lot of negative things that came out of COVID, but there is a lot of positive things. And when we talk about perspective, and that positive is, I think, the question now is, could this happen on a global level again? And I would hope not. I say that people now would show a lot more resistance than they did the first time, and not just to the shot, just anything in general, right? Because, you know, I'm not hating on anyone that took the shot. I often say it. I'm very open about it and transparent. I took the shot way before the vaccine mandate came out, because I wanted to see my father in the nursing home or just have any connection, and I would have done whatever it took And even if I knew the shot was going to kill me that day, I would have taken it just to see my father, because I was so close to him. But when the vaccine mandate came out, I stood up for my fellow cops because I don't think you should have to take something that you don't want to. And so for me, I made that choice that it was worth it for me to take it at that time. But all the things that came out of COVID, as far as compliance and just the political identities that people actually have gotten out of COVID, we've learned that could there be another Nazi Germany camp? Could there be another World War II style, Holocaust? And the answer is absolutely yes. And so that's the good part. I think we learned from it is how compliant people can be, and we have to do better on speaking out and not be afraid, and people not be so comfortable and really to make sure that your financial situation is good in life, so that the government can't put leverage on you, right? Because 70 to 80% of people are 2 weeks or 2 paychecks away from being broke or from being homeless. And so I hope that we've gotten educated by this to make ourselves better. So that's where the good comes out of it. So there's a lot of good and bad that comes out of it. And ultimately, everything in life should be a learning experience. And what did you learn from it to make your life better?
Yeah, good points. Yeah, a lot to digest about this again. So I said on Wednesday I was watching some videos from a guy named Endymion on YouTube, right? And I was thinking also that we started out like our primary focus is on law enforcement and the NYPD and the state of New York City, but in a lot of ways the stuff we talk about branches out about the entire country and about like Western society and about culture and preserving culture and preventing us from deteriorating. And I find it interesting that a lot of these other guys, like I'm talking like guys who don't talk about anything related to directly about politics and policing, like this guy, the Critical Drink, is another guy I watch for his movie reviews, right? And here's another guy I watch too about movie reviews. I find it interesting that all these guys, we're all slowly arriving at the same place, about the same problems, because they'll talk about the problems in their industry, in like the movie industries, and why you get movies that are so garbage and woke now. And we all going back to the same problems. And even though we're not talking about the same things, and that's why I said on Wednesday that, that's part of the reason why I said that I think we've won. He's right in that we've won. I mean, when he says that we've also lost, we've lost now, but we've already won the war. You see, it's just the enemy hasn't yielded yet, because we're in a war of attrition right now, right? We're in a war of attrition, and the enemy is going to keep pouring money into the fight and keep pouring resources into the fight. And all we have to do is keep spreading the word and keep waking up people, and the enemy loses. Because like in those other industries, the enemy is losing in movies right now because nobody is watching movies, because everyone is tired of the bullshit. We just want good movies. We just want to, for us, we want a good police department that moves away from the bullshit, right? And the progressivism and all that stuff that's failed. Okay. And they want good movies. And the people who want to see good movies aren't going to watch movies right now. And that's why the studios are losing tons of money. And it's forcing them to get back to the real world. And this relates to us too, because the more we talk about this and more we wake up people, and the more people move away from places like New York City and make them broke, is the more they're gonna have to wake up. Because at a certain point in Vietnam, we lost so many people that the war became very unpopular, and it became unsustainable economically for America to continue fighting it. And this is why which led to the 70s and us leaving the gold standard, because countries like France realized, oh, how are you paying for the war? Okay, I want my gold. You're bullshitting us. So we're fighting a war of attrition right now, and we may have lost in the immediate sense, but we've already won the war. It's just the enemy doesn't want to yield yet.
Yeah, I don't agree. I mean, I think we won the information war. I mean, and we didn't win the information war. The truth just came out. Like, it wasn't that we won anything. Like, the
Well, we
truth
pushed
always
back.
will take hold. Like, so yeah, we won the argument of the truth, but they put in a mandate today. There's going to be a 99.9% compliance rate. Everybody's laying down. Everybody's fucking laying down.
You think so?
Absolutely. Everybody's laying down. They want to be Marlon Bethel? They want to get fired from their career? Everybody's going to come up with an excuse. Every single person. I mean, look what they did to us, and we accepted it. Look what they did to us. Your kid was in the hospital. They wouldn't let you go see your kid, and we accepted it and we laid down. They'll do it. They'll do it again, and this time everyone will just bow down. They're not going to say nothing. They know it was all wrong. They know what it was. History repeated itself right in front of our eyes. The Bible came alive for everybody. And most people decided they'd rather have a free cheeseburger or $500. Instead of the unions fighting for us, they fought to make sure that everybody that took the thing got $500 or their free fries or their free burgers. Like, I think we're in a much worse off position. But look, let's do the super chats and get out of here because we're running out of time here. All right. Let's go to Corchado. He sends a super sticker. Corchado 85. Thank you. I've seen the photo before. I don't remember the name, so maybe you had a different name. I remember the red Grom, Honda Grom. I was thinking about getting one, but I got something similar over here. So $9.99. We appreciate it. Appreciate you for being here. Those of you wherever you're watching, listen, please do us a favor. Go over to YouTube, like, share, subscribe. Don't forget to hit the hype button. Help move us up further in the algorithm. We're doing good. I think we're about 2.5 million views this month overall. Our short content is dominating. We want to get our long content to be dominating like that as well. So if you could help us, we'd appreciate it. Again, self-funded podcast, so we appreciate all the donations. And you guys on Instagram, again, I'm going to tell you is I can't see the comments. We don't know what you're saying. Come over to the chat on YouTube at The Finest Unfiltered. Make an account. Hit the like button. Subscribe. It would help us significantly. If you can't donate, I mean, that would just be wonders. If you could just hit that like and that hype button, I mean, that would be more than enough, and we appreciate that. Staten Guy 321. He says, if we have to give reparations, do the countries who did September 11th owe New York City money? I mean, and that, like, the reparations thing just annoys the shit out of me because especially my family's from Sicily. If you go to Macari, Sicily, it's a small town in Western Sicily. If you look at Sicily, I mean, it was literally dominated by everyone, right? Like every empire, whether it was from Africa, whether it was like a Middle Eastern country, at some point, all of these people dominated Sicily. Then we came to America, and we were like, basically we were indentured servitudes, and we were part of the largest mass lynching in American history, and the president at the time said it was a good thing. So I mean, when you look at that, like, yeah, I'm like, oh, we're gonna start giving reparations. All right, I want my 40 acres of grape vineyards and a donkey then. If everybody's getting reparations, I want my reparations too. Like, it's a stupid asinine thing to think we're going to correct things that happened hundreds of years in the past, and somehow that people that are alive today are somehow guilty of this and benefited from this, and other people suffered as a result of this. It's asinine, in my opinion. Look at the harm that they've caused New York City residents, New York City public sector workers. Look at that. They can't even correct that injustice, but you're going to correct an injustice from 200 years ago? Spare me.
Yeah, I want to say, Stan Guy, thank you for the coffee donuts. I think it's ridiculous because there's always been global conflict. It's just a part of life. And every time we have a conflict, we have to move forward and learn from it and not go back in time and try to correct wrongs. Instead, move forward and learn from it. I mean, what's next? Are we going to, anyone that's in this country that is Vietnamese descent, are we going to make them give reparations to the loss of family members who've had family members that were killed in Vietnam, or same thing in World War II and going back? It's absolutely ridiculous. Like I said, it's always been global conflict, and every community has been marginalized in some different way, shape, or form. I'm Jewish, Italians, blacks, doesn't matter. Every community has been either a slave owner or a slave themselves. So it's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, that's only, slavery is only a surface level argument for them. It's the real reason is because things are getting worse, and they need to keep their constituents in line. The people who vote most for progressive bullshit, they need to keep them in line because even they are getting fed up with the way things are.
So all the undeserved promotions aren't enough. That's weird. And all the people who aren't qualified are getting jobs that they're not qualified for.
Yeah, no, well, that's on a different level. We're talking they want to give reparations to the peasants in the street to keep them from revolting and getting their pitchforks and torches and ready in the streets, while because they themselves know that, hey, I keep voting for you, and it shit's still getting worse in it. Look at Mamdani's constituents. A lot of them are not happy with the way things are going right now. A lot of them.
I get what you're saying. So the appointees, they're not actually the peasant class. They're actually the
Yeah.
house servants. I get it.
Yes.
Treated a little bit better. Yep. Get my iced tea. Pour the iced tea for de Blasio, Adams, and now Mamdani. Sniffing
Well,
his balls.
it's considered an upgrade, you know. So
Yeah.
better be in the house and out of the house, right?
Yeah. These bosses were trailblazers in the job, starting to hire immoral skulls. They were the forefront of the new job who neglects integrity in their mission. They want to be liked, not lead. I think they just want the promotion, they want the power, and they want the money. That's it. That's what they want. And they all fancy themselves gangsters when they're the biggest cowards you ever met in your whole life. You know?
As I always say, right? There's two reasons why they don't stand up and speak out. They pave the way for themselves. It's self-serving promotions or self-serving devotion. And then they pave the way for their offspring. So there's always an incentive. It's incentivized to be a nice guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Anthony says, safe weekend. Keeping us informed. Absolutely. Everybody have a safe weekend this weekend. I think it's going to be hot out there. So make sure you stay hydrated. Don't be running around, especially if you're our age. Don't be running around doing those crazy workouts. You know, take it easy out there. So Staten Guy Anderson is one of the worst bosses. All he did was yell at people about shoes and misquote the patrol guide. He also despises white people almost openly. So his promotion makes total sense. Yeah, I don't know him as a supervisor. I honestly, I got to be honest, haven't heard any really bad things about him. A couple of things similar to what you're saying. But nothing like I know a lot of people, and I gotta say, a lot of people that worked with him haven't really said too much bad about him, and really just cucking out for him. Oh, he's a great guy. Blah, blah, blah. All right, well, whatever, So I don't know, so I can't really comment on it. I don't know.
Spot on.
Anthony says race doesn't matter for these white shirts. Constant variable is no integrity / backbone. So these guys went up the ranks. Yes, men / women and hands in the cookie jar, just getting caught now. Yeah, exactly. That's perfectly well said.
Yeah, you see what Staten Guy said though is what is basically the same thing I said, but he's just putting it in a different form. Yeah. So if you want to know how they feel, ask them, hear them talk about Obama. And you just need to listen to their politics, and you will understand what I'm talking about here. Okay, they believe in that stuff. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's told to you back when says Terrell popped his cherry just like Henry Hill. Oh, you popped your cherry. There was a couple of things though, right? There was a couple of things. I pulled the article up. We didn't talk about it. When he was the commander of the 7-3 and he didn't show up to a performance review meeting when 7-3 was spiking, and he was removed from his position then. So there's a lot of things. He popped his cherry's been popped, as an executive in the executive rank. So it's told to you back when said family is proud of you, Terrell. Marlon Brando voice. It is, wow, it's true. It's
crumbs, baby, crumbs. We need a little Godfather music right now.
It's damn true. Finest 25 says present for duty. Another excellent week of shows. Thank you. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate everybody for the super stickers. Appreciate everybody for joining. Yeah, and that's it. I mean, I think COVID's a topic that's on a lot of people's minds. I think I'm gonna be doing a lot more videos about it. I definitely want to hone in on the fact that there are actually no civil rights attorneys for majority groups. There are some, but they're very few. But the people and if you look at them, they're not traditionally civil rights attorneys. But the people that are civil rights attorneys only are for minorities. I don't want to give anyone's name here because I don't want to give them more credit than they deserve. So to even have me mention their names, but But yeah, I think so I'm getting ready for a fun week ahead of a lot of craziness. I'm sure we're going to get a lot of racist quotes. Could be a lot of groups coming after us as a result of this podcast. And hey, look, the truth is the truth. So we don't have to defend it. So the threatening of the lawsuits, I tell everybody, take the lawsuit, shove it up your ass. I'll testify to everything I said on here with a big fucking smile on my face. So go ahead. My opinion is my opinion, and nobody's going to get me to change my fucking mind. So that is it.
You know what I never understand? Progressives, like that certain lawyer, will tell you government is racist, government is oppressive, right? But get that shot. Take that shot. You know?
Yep.
Gotta go get that shot. Government's racist and oppressive, but you better take your shot. Huh?
He was, a lot of people called that fucking coward too, and that phony fraud of a cop, and they called him, and he was like, they could do that. It's like, what? What?
Government's now oppressive and racist when they're trying to mandate an illegal medical experiment, right? Right? Then it doesn't matter. Okay. So please, if you progressives out there, right, and you progressive black chiefs can explain that to me, go right on ahead. I'll be waiting for a video from you, Chief Faison. Okay. But please explain that to me.
I see Faison's Instagram videos. They're all full of shit. Ask me, he looks like he's pretty nervous. He said he's going to break down and explain all the lawsuits. I don't know why you need to explain them. If you did nothing wrong, you shouldn't even have the defendant just say these lawsuits are full of shit and leave it at that. But he seems a little perturbed and quite nervous to me. So with that being said, 3 hours and 10 minutes into it. Thanks everyone. Friday roundtable. Thanks for hanging us out. Full stamina here on a long show. We love it. We really enjoy it. Great engagement today. It's a great conversation. Again, I don't know Terrell Anderson, personally. I did come out with him in the academy, and I knew him briefly in some small interactions. Came off congenial, but to see where he's at right now, I'm not here to attack his character, but his position of leadership is a failure. It pandered to the progressive politicians. To me, it seemed like an interview stage, saying that the community can police themselves. I wonder, just as I said, Terrence Monahan, these other chiefs out there, will it haunt them? Because I do believe that they're all playing the nice guy syndrome because they're incentivized to pave the way for their self-promotion or their self-devotion and also pave the way for their offspring. But will it haunt them? And I do believe so. I really do. I do believe that these guys have to live with it, and I do believe that they struggle with it. Maybe not now, but at some point they will struggle with it, and it will become a daily nightmare. And I think it should. I think they should have to live with that. So with that being said, thank you, everyone. We appreciate it. Let's close this out. Find us Unfiltered.
Yeah, that's it. Molly, got anything before we run, bro?
Nope. To all our haters.
Ron Samurai's trying to get you. He's trying to get you on the China conversation. We ain't doing it. We got to run.
We're not taking a
in China.
Yeah, sorry about that, Marlon Samurai. We had enough. But thank you guys for joining us today. Hope you have a great weekend. And if you're out there on patrol or on the streets, otherwise, stay alert, stay safe, and stay present. Okay. And to our haters, co-parter. See you next week.
Find us Unfiltered, baby. We'll be back at you Monday. We'll let you know what we're going to talk about. We might even talk about something that's coming out of the JFK, a little potential lawsuit that's going to spark up out of the JFK unit from someone who, are they Marjorie's niece? And now all of a sudden, they're going to support Marjorie's niece, who's a first grader, and start to put false information out there in order to glaze and put false stuff out there for their lawsuit. Maybe we'll talk about it. Who knows? We'll see. We'll let you guys know Sunday night. Find us Unfiltered. We'll be back at you.
President Trump wrote on Twitter, "Don't be afraid of COVID. Don't let it dominate your life." Don't let it dominate your life?
in terms of responding to a comment like that. It's gross.
It's okay to be afraid of COVID, and it's okay that it's dominating your life.
Everyone should be afraid of COVID.
You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free.
I can't come in, Mom. It's because of this flu thing.
We won't be free of this pandemic until we listen to the acknowledged truth. Listen to the scientists.
Science is truth.
You know, science is truth.
What is the impact to public health when people are openly questioning the science?
Now is the time to do what you're told.
By not hearing the truth, by not listening to the scientists, they are prolonging how bad the economy will be.
When I see somebody out in the world who's not wearing a mask, I instantly think you are a threat, or you are selfish, or you are a COVID denier, and you definitely haven't been vaccinated.
Either wear a mask or get the house.
What does this have? Are you vaccinated?
I am triple vaccinated.
So why are you wearing the mask?
Seek out the scientists and listen to their advice.
Listen to scientists. Listen to the scientists.
Trust the experts.
We're going to trust science. We're going to trust the experts. Parents who say, well, I need to do my own research. Makes you think of that cartoon I saw of the tombstone that said, I did my own research.
Republicans have given their voters license to believe whatever they want to believe.
Heard somebody saying, listen to the scientists. Do that.
Let's listen to the scientists.
That phrase, do your own research, it's popping up a lot in conversations about coronavirus and about COVID vaccines. Doing your own research, it seems so innocent, but it can have serious consequences. Renee, what are the roots of this phrase? I feel like I used to hear it around QAnon craziness.
Come on!
Tase somebody over a mask. Tasing this lady over not wearing a damn mask.
If some jerk exposed my mother to COVID because they didn't want to wear a mask, I would want to kill them.
We can watch the experts, but we shouldn't be listening to Trump, a non-medical professional.
Well, the answer is listen to Bill Gates. Bill's right about a lot of things, and he's the steep learning curve in global health.
And we're really seeing just how important it is to follow science.
Yes, exactly. And we need to listen to scientists.
The idea that people are questioning the science behind the vaccine.
The science checks out. Even if you don't believe in the science, you think you're tough enough and you're healthy enough and you're young enough. The scientists were right all along. Eventually, the science catches up with you.
Are we doing more harm than good by questioning the science behind J&J?
Trust that vaccine.
Trust the experts.
Listen to the medical experts.
Trust the experts.
If you don't understand the science, you don't know what you're fighting. Just let the experts speak.
So maybe you should just shut up right now.
You don't want to take advice from your golf buddy or from your aunt. You want to listen to the scientists. And we all stop saying, I need to do my own research.
You see the ultimate effects of what happens when you don't listen to the scientists.
This isn't about being scared. This is about scaring us straight.
Science, science, and science. Only listen to the scientist.
If we follow the science, imagine, instead of staying locked up in their rooms, they're able to hug their grandchildren. This isn't about freedom. It's about freedom for your neighbors.
You can give each other a hug as long as everyone is fully vaccinated.
Listen to the scientists like the rest of us.
We have to listen to the scientists.
We'll listen to the scientists.
Every scientist, every expert, listen to the experts.
Listen to the science because the science works.
Very much.
Yeah.
I think trust science.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?